Chapter 352. Tion spat out a sentence filled with dominance. The purple mark on his forehead flickered, and 3 rays of purple light instantly shot out, crossing the boundary of the void and arriving in front of the 3 demon tigers in an instant, landing on the king mark on their foreheads. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, countless amounts of demonic chi madly gushed out from the pores of their bodies, condensing outside their bodies. In an instant, their bodies were like balloons, violently inflating. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the blink of an eye, they had swelled to over 100 feet tall, and their demonic chi was like clouds, violently surging. At the same time, waves of hatred appeared in their eyes, and they turned to glare at the 3 imprisoned cultivators in midair. Go, kill them, use their blood to wash away the anger in your hearts, and use their lives to witness your growth. When Tion saw that the 3 multicolored demon tigers were already exuding a strong demonic chi, exuding an intense battle intent, he nodded inwardly, but his mouth showed no trace of expression as he spoke. This isn't fair, this isn't fair. Seeing the 3 demon tigers, who had been toyed with by them, suddenly undergo earth-shattering changes in the blink of an eye, their bodies instantly expanded dozens of times, and their demonic chi surged violently, surging fiercely. Baring their fangs, they walked over step by step. An invisible pressure fell on the 3 cultivators. Immediately their faces changed greatly, and they were as pale as a sheet of white paper. In a situation where they were unable to move, if the 3 demon tigers approached them, they would definitely be torn to pieces in an instant. With fear on their faces, they shouted loudly, "You're the demon king of the demon clan, you can't bully the weak like this. Aren't you afraid that you'll lose face if word of this spreads?" The pale-faced cultivator also shouted loudly. Tion glanced indifferently at them and said, "I'll give you a chance to fight with them. If you win, this king will make an exception and spare your lives. If you lose, He didn't continue, but the chilling coldness in his words had thoroughly expressed his intentions. As soon as his voice fell, the restraints on the 3 cultivators disappeared in the same way they appeared. Run! The 3 cultivators did not hesitate in the slightest. As soon as the bindings were released, they turned around and fled in the opposite direction. They mustered all of their strength and desperately fled. They didn't have any intention of fighting the 3 tigers. In their minds, the one in front of them was a demon king that they didn't even have the strength to fight back. If they stayed here and fought with the 3 tigers, they would die if they lost. If they won, they might still be ground to dust by the demon king. It was better to escape on the spot. There was still a slight chance of survival. When they were escaping, they were very skillful. They split up into 3 different directions. It could be seen that they were very experienced in this aspect. Bang! However, Sakura only looked at them with a cold smile and didn't stop them. He looked on helplessly as they had just escaped 10 feet away. Their bodies that were flying at high speed were suddenly smashed into the void, as if they had smashed into an invisible mountain. One after another, they let out a muffled groan and fell onto the ground. He was seeing stars and his head was spinning. Roar! At this time, the 3 tigers, whose bodies had swelled to more than 100 feet tall, emitted a bloodthirsty light at the same time. They opened their bloody mouths, revealing a mouthful of fangs. They sucked fiercely in front of them. A gust of wind rose from the ground and was instantly swallowed into their stomachs. Their bodies swelled again, and a strong aura of the king of beasts swept wildly from their bodies. They raised their heads and opened their mouths to let out an incomparably domineering tiger roar. As soon as the tiger roar came out, the surrounding trees seemed to be swept away by a gust of wind. Countless leaves were shaken and fell to the ground. Invisible ripples shook the void in this shocking roar and spread out in all directions. It was like waves, crashing toward the 3 cultivators with mountain-toppling force. The tiger roar was so powerful that it was like thousands of thunderbolts raging. It was so loud that it was deafening. The three cultivators, who were already dizzy from the collision, were not prepared for this. They only felt the continuous roaring in their heads, as if their minds were about to be shaken to pieces. Blood flowed out of their ears. Then, the invisible sound waves in the air hit their bodies wave after wave. Their bodies felt like they were being struck by lightning. However, they did not know what kind of treasure the black clothes they were wearing were, but they actually emitted bursts of black light and blocked the shocking power of the sound waves. However, their internal organs were shaken violently in an instant. Their blood and chi were tumbling, and it was so uncomfortable that they were about to vomit blood. In an instant, they were injured on top of their injuries. 7th junior brother, 8th junior brother, fight it out with them. This tiger roar also shook them awake. Their hearts were full of fear, but they also realized their current situation in an instant. They were, after all, some ruthless characters. Seeing that there was no way to escape, they were stimulated to be ruthless. Beast spirit, come out. The three cultivators held the same white bone in their hand. It was like a long thorn, and it was very strange. At this time, they all shouted and formed a seal, imprinting it into the bone thorn. In an instant, the bone thorn emitted a strange pale light and trembled violently. It was as if there was a life inside, and it emitted a terrifying trembling sound. Boom, boom, boom! The three bone thorns flashed in the wind. From the bone thorns, three huge wolves, the size of houses and their bodies emitted pale white ghost fire, suddenly sprang out. The moment these huge ghost wolves appeared, their eyes emitted a green light. They stared at the demon tigers. Their bodies were not weaker than them at all. Waves of wolf howls came from their mouths to block the sound waves, and they rushed over like lightning. The tiger was the king of beasts. Among the beasts it was a natural king. It never feared any battle. Once it saw these ghost wolves rushing over, it emitted waves of sound waves and an invisible deterrence from its body. It fiercely rushed over and immediately fought with the three ghost wolf-like beast spirit. Demonic aura billowed, and the roars were endless. The ghost wolves' bodies seemed to be very illusory. They were not real. The tiger claws tore them apart, and they could reform in the blink of an eye. They were not afraid at all. However, the sound waves of the tiger's roar could shake their bodies and dissipate their power. It seems that the immortal cultivation world has already begun to encircle and annihilate the weak demon clansmen. Who knows how many demons that have just been born with spirituality have been killed like this? Medusa's face became a little ugly. Looking at the tiger clan below, she thought of the other demon clansmen on the mainland who were also suffering the same fate. If the tigers in front of them had not met them, it was likely that they would not have been able to escape the fate of being slaughtered. Humph! The coldness in Shirtian's eyes became more and more intense. All this time, he had been extremely disgusted by the immortal cultivation world's bullying of the demon clan. At this moment, when he saw the tiger clan below being teased by the three cultivators like a cat playing with a mouse, a nameless anger crazily burned in his body. This was a kind of anger that came from his bloodline. It was a kind of nameless sorrow. No matter what happened in his previous life, in this life, he was a demon. His blood flowed with the blood of the king of beasts. Seeing his fellow clansmen being chased in such a sorry state, that kind of anger almost burned everything. Everything was burned to ashes. The desire to make the demon clan rise to power was unprecedentedly strong. Even if it's not for anything else, just for my clan, just for my family, I will definitely create an iron bucket of mountains and mountains. I will build a force that no one dares to look down on. I will make it so that no cultivator will dare to easily kill the demon clan and wantonly steal their inner cores. I will pull out their tendons and pull out their bones. At some unknown time, Shirtian's fists were tightly clenched, making crisp sounds. However, his expression did not change in the slightest as he said resolutely, "There will come a day when the cultivation world will regret it. I will make them regret it. With me here, let's see who dares to slaughter the tiger clan again." If they kill a tiger, I will exterminate their entire clan. His words revealed a bone-chilling coldness. There was also an indomitable decisiveness in his voice. When Medusa heard this, she glanced at him. However, she did not agree nor refute him. She truly could not imagine what kind of strength was required to achieve such a step. Without that kind of mighty strength that stood at the peak, how could one have that kind of power that could deter all living things? With a faint smile, she looked down at the battle below and said thoughtfully, "Those 3 cultivators are core formation cultivators after all. Although you passed on your tiger roar sound wave to them and gave them the method to use the demonic energy in their bodies, they still haven't familiarized themselves with their own strength. I'm afraid that it will be difficult to truly kill them." She had long seen that the 3 purple rays that Chertion shot at the 3 demon tigers actually contained some inheritance. In the inheritance there should be some method to use demonic energy. Then there was the tiger roar sound wave technique that Chertion relied on to kill enemies in his early years. Although the tiger roar sound wave technique was an innate attack technique of the tiger clan, it was difficult to use it without knowing how to use demonic energy. However, once there was a method to use it, it could be instinctively and quickly mastered. "It's fine." Chertion waved his hand and said, "I want them to fight, to kill the cultivators. Using battle, using blood as a baptism, to stimulate the bloodlust and battle intent in their bodies. As members of the Tiger Clan, how can they not kill? With a fearless battle intent, their achievements in the future will definitely not stop at this realm." An indescribable sense of responsibility welled up in her heart. As a member of the Tiger Clan, seeing her own clansmen being hunted down so pathetically, her heart was fiercely touched. Inadvertently, she realized that her own kind was being hunted down and killed. That was a very sad feeling. Almost instantly, she made a decision in her heart. No matter what, she had to do her best and let the Tiger Clan become the true kings of the beasts. At the same time, she also had to become the royal clan of the Demon Clan. 3 demonic tigers of the demonic beast level were fighting with 3 strange beast spirits. These beast spirits were very strange. Not only did their bodies seem to be illusory and difficult to damage, just like ghosts, but their claws were also very sharp. When the claws landed on their bodies, it immediately left a few deep wounds that exposed the bones. Blood was dripping. However, the beast spirits were also continuously shaken by the tiger roar. Their bodies became more and more illusory, as if they would disappear at any time. The 3 cultivators also controlled their bone spikes to attack them from time to time. The 3 demon tigers were at a disadvantage. Their bodies were dripping with blood and covered with various wounds. Ding-dang! Ding-dang! Just as the battle was at its most intense, suddenly, a sound like metal being dragged on the ground rang out from afar without warning. The sound was continuous. Amidst the sound, there was a gust of cold qi that rushed towards them. Accompanying it was the sound of heavy footsteps. Something's not right. Chertion glanced at Medusa and frowned slightly. Then, he looked to his left and his expression turned unusually serious. Amidst this strange sound, amidst the qi that rushed towards them, there was a kind of strange aura. Even his heart violently contracted as a strong sense of danger rose within him. Strong, what a strong aura! Who is this? Chertion looked towards the direction of the sound as a thought flashed through his mind. He looked at the battle below and the dozens of tigers that had gathered again. He stretched out his hand and grabbed downward. Under his claw, the entire air seemed to have solidified in an instant, as if it was squeezed in his palm. The 3 demon tigers that were originally bathed in blood and tearing at each other were simultaneously pulled up by an invisible force. They could not resist at all. In the blink of an eye, the scene in front of them changed. When they looked again, they had already appeared on the floating cloud boat. The boat was very spacious, and there was no difficulty in accommodating them. There was also no feeling of crowding. "Senior!" The 3 demon tigers were obviously the leaders of the tiger group. Seeing Tion standing in front of them, their eyes immediately showed respect and expectation. "From today onwards you will call me King." Tion glanced at them. He slightly nodded and said, "What I gave you before was the cultivation method of my tiger clan before condensing the inner core. From now on, you will circulate your demon power according to the method of Tiger Roar technique and concentrate on cultivation." What he had given them was the Tiger Roar technique that he had obtained from the bloodline inheritance. For the Tiger clan, this was the most suitable cultivation method for laying the foundation. He didn't say anything else after he had said this. He merely stood in the void. His mind moved, and he gathered the clouds in the surroundings. Then, the floating cloud ship was completely hidden in the clouds. He stood in the clouds and observed the scene below. "I can feel that there is a very powerful expert in that direction. I am not his match." Medusa also looked towards the direction where the strange sound of metal and the dull sound of footsteps were constantly coming from. Her expression suddenly became dignified as she said, "What's going on? Why did those 3 demon beasts suddenly disappear? And that demon king is also gone. Could it be that we're fine? Haha, as I said, the demon clan is already on the verge of extinction. How could they still dare to clash with our immortal cultivation sex? Didn't they still leave with their tails between their legs? However, we should hurry back to avoid any more accidents." Tion suddenly took away all the tigers. The 3 white bone sect disciples, who were still focusing all their energy on the battle, were shocked for a while. They found it hard to believe that they could escape with their lives so easily. At the same time as they were shocked, they were also overjoyed. But in the blink of an eye, the thought of leaving quickly arose. However, when they turned around to escape, they found that the invisible restriction around them was still there. There was an incomparably tough barrier in the invisible air. There was no way to break it. Clink! At this moment, the sound of metal colliding became even clearer. When they heard it again, it seemed that there was a strange magic in this sound. When they heard it, even their souls would be shaken. It was like a kind of soul-stealing demonic sound. Their minds couldn't help but be attracted. Crash! The 3 cultivators also heard the strange sound. They wanted to quickly leave this place, but they were trapped in this small area. In front of them was a small hill. Behind the hill was the location of the sound. "What is it? What is it? This sound is even causing my soul to leave my body. It's too scary. It's even scarier than the Demon King. How despicable. He must know that a powerful expert is coming, but he's still bound us here. He wants to kill with a borrowed knife. What the hell is this sound? My body is emitting cold air." For a moment, the 3 cultivators gathered together and stared at the hill in horror. Crash! Patter! In the blink of an eye, the strange sound seemed to ring in their ears. Heavy footsteps seemed to cause the hill to tremble. A tall and sturdy figure walked out from behind the hill. "It's a human." He was very tall and sturdy. He was more than 2 meters tall and had a strong physique. At first glance, one would have the illusion of looking at a small giant. He was wearing a pitch-black tight-fitting suit. His pitch-black long hair was messily draped over his shoulders, wantonly fluttering in the wind. His perfect muscles were completely exposed under the tight-fitting suit. It was filled with explosive power. His muscles were like coiling dragons. That might was enough to shock most cultivators with weak wills. The strangest thing was that on his back, there was a strange black coffin that looked like a black crystal. The black coffin emitted strands of black gas, and there were countless strange and mysterious talismans on it. They were densely packed and distributed on every inch of the black coffin. It was even more sinister. On the black coffin, 9 black iron chains as thick as water arms stretched out and bound the burly man's body, arms, legs, chest, and neck. His abdomen and other parts of his body were all wrapped by these strange iron chains. The iron chains were filled with the same black gas that enveloped his entire body. The long iron chains dragged on the ground, and when they moved, they naturally emitted strange metallic sounds. From head to toe, this strange burly man had a strange aura that didn't seem like a living person. It was like a corpse that crawled out from the underworld. If one looked carefully, one could see that wherever the burly man walked, the grass and trees on the ground withered and turned into ashes. The ground turned black and withered. It was as if it had been burned. All life was extinguished. Corpse chi, this is corpse chi. What a terrifying corpse chi. It can actually destroy all things. All life is gone in an instant. Di Shirtian's heart was in turmoil. He stared blankly at the burly man carrying the black coffin with a horrified expression. That black gas wasn't demonic gas. It carried a deathly aura. Wherever it passed, as long as it touched something, all life would be sucked out and all things would be extinguished. However, there seemed to be a trace of life in the black coffin. It was very strange. When this person appeared, the three cultivators who had been feeling uneasy all this time seemed to have seen the most inconceivable thing in the world. Their eyes suddenly widened, and their mouths opened unconsciously, revealing a stunned expression. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 353. Coffin Bearer. At this time, the three cultivators who had been swaggering and arrogant at the beginning could be said to be completely dumbfounded. Their faces were pale, and they had a look of despair. Even when they spoke, their teeth were trembling. They were so shocked that they could not speak. It seemed that they would faint on the spot at any time. Impossible, impossible, how could the coffin bearer be here? It's over, it's really over this time. Coffin bearer, heavens, corpse demon, wasn't corpse demon sealed and killed? How could it be here? I don't want to die. Damn Demon King, if you want to leave, then leave. Why did you have to seal this place? Break, open for me. Driven by fear, the three cultivators began to madly attack the invisible restriction behind them. All sorts of talismans and various magical tools they had collected were thrown at the restriction without any hesitation. They immediately caused them to self-destruct. The destructive power that erupted caused the surrounding space to rumble violently. Dozens of magic tools were thrown out without hesitation, and they actually managed to blast open a hole in the invisible restriction. Without even thinking, the three of them directly passed through the hole, and with a wave of the bone spears in their hands, they were about to break through the air and flee for their lives. Crash! However, the large man who carried the strange black coffin on his back and gave off an unapproachable aura looked at the three of them with his lifeless eyes. He raised his left arm, and the black iron chain wrapped around his arm instantly swung forward like a snake. The iron chain extended forward without limit and instantly extended over 100 zhang. It didn't seem fast, but in the blink of an eye, it crossed the boundary of the void and appeared in front of the three cultivators. The three cultivators didn't even have time to react before the chain wrapped around them, and the black corpse aura on the chain covered them. Clatter! The chains rolled back, and the black coffin on the burly man's back flickered with countless strange talismans. The tightly closed lid of the coffin suddenly opened, and the three cultivators on the chains were sucked into the black coffin. With a bang, the black coffin closed again, and a dense corpse aura filled the air. All life within a 10-meter radius was devoured by the black coffin. Keep away all living things, and all living things will perish. The three core formation cultivators didn't even have the time to scream before they were swallowed up by the black coffin. From beginning to end, they didn't even have the chance to make a decent counterattack. It could be said to be extremely terrifying. A strange aura pervaded the air. Crash! After the three of them were sucked into the black coffin, the corpse chi around the black coffin and the burly man seemed to have thickened a little. However, the burly man did not stop moving. His eyes were still filled with a deathly light as he dragged the heavy, pitch-black chain and walked forward step by step. Wherever he went, all life was extinguished. No living thing could survive. The flowers and plants withered instantly. The ancient trees withered and decayed at a speed visible to the naked eye. No matter what was in front of him, he continued to walk forward without changing his direction. The pitch-black barren land behind him was a straight line, without the slightest bend in the slightest. When he walked past, the strange coffin-bearer's footsteps slightly paused. He raised his head and glanced at the floating cloud ship. Those ice-cold eyes without a trace of life were like the gaze of the god of the underworld. It made one's heart feel ice-cold and suffocated. However, for some unknown reason, he didn't stop. He continued to walk forward with determination. All the plants in front of him were extinguished. All living things were sucked into the black coffin. What a terrifying gaze! It actually made me feel as if I could smell the scent of death in an instant. Deschertien's expression was grave. The tiger soul on his back was constantly trembling without any warning. The low roars of the tiger were continuous. It seemed to be frightened, but also seemed to be excited. It was a trembling cry that wanted to challenge him. The tiger soul was now a demon weapon at the level of a magic treasure. It had a spirituality that it didn't have before it was promoted. If it continued to be nurtured and nourished, there would be a day when it would become an artifact soul like the underworld. It would become the saber spirit of the tiger soul. Although this wisp of spirituality was still very weak, it was born with an unyielding fighting spirit that would not yield to any powerhouse. Even when it sensed the terrifying aura emanating from the mysterious coffin-carrying man, it was still not afraid. It let out a soft cry and was not afraid to fight. He gently patted the tiger's soul on his back to calm it down. He watched the coffin-bearer's back as he left. That strange black coffin. I don't know what kind of strange demonic creature that black coffin is. I can feel that there is an inconceivable power in it. Corpse chi. Such a dense and terrifying corpse chi. Could it be that this burly man isn't a living person, but a zombie? It was unknown when an ancient mirror had appeared in Medusa's hand. She played with it in a practiced manner. Those star-like eyes, which seemed to be able to freeze everything, involuntarily revealed traces of shock. If one were to look carefully, one would discover that an enormous amount of demonic chi had already covered her entire body, ready to be spat out at any moment. It could be seen how afraid she was just now. Zombie? Deschertien shook his head and smiled bitterly. Zombies weren't things that could be easily played with. They carried the resentment, evil, and filth of heaven and earth. They were reborn with an endless stream of chi and an undying obsession. They were immortal and indestructible. They didn't exist in the 3 realms or the 6 realms. They existed alone outside of the 3 realms. They used endless blood to vent their resentment. Almost no one in the world could restrain the experts among the zombies. Of course, this only applied to the zombie kings who were blessed by the heavens. For example, in the cultivation world of the continent, there was a branch of corpse cultivation. They used a secret method to refine dead bodies into zombies. They didn't fear death and didn't feel pain. Their bodies were like copper skin and iron bones that couldn't be penetrated by swords and spears. If they refined a life origin corpse deity, they might be able to refine a terrifying corpse deity. That would be truly terrifying. Thinking of some memories about zombies, Deschertien secretly became more vigilant. He shook his head and threw all these messy thoughts to the back of his mind. He said, "Forget it. After all, there are too many inconceivable things on the Zijin continent. There are all kinds of mysterious places. No one knows how many strange things there are in this vast and boundless territory. As long as this coffin carrier doesn't attack us, we don't need to think too much. Sooner or later, we will find out about his background." After he finished speaking, he took a deep look at the strange figure. Then, He retracted his gaze and looked at the group of tigers on the boat. How did you get chased by 3 immortal cultivators? Where did you live? King. Upon hearing Sakra's question, all the tigers in the surroundings started to sob. Their gazes towards him contained both excitement and respect, as well as deep grief and hatred. After listening to the narration of the 3 tigers, who had already cultivated to the early stage of demonic beasts, he finally understood the whole story. It turned out that there was a valley 100 miles away from here, which they called the Tiger's Roar Valley. At some point in time, a group of tigers moved into the valley. At first, there were not many of them, but gradually they reproduced on their own. In addition, the tigers in the nearby forest heard the news and moved into the valley. Gradually, it became a breeding ground for tigers, and they gathered into a group of tigers. It was said that at its peak, the total number of tigers reached 100. They were the well-deserved overlords of that forest. 1,000 years ago, the terrain of the Tiger's Roar Valley suddenly changed. A large amount of spiritual energy emerged from the valley. Although it could not be compared with the Myriad Demon Valley, it was still abundant. Under such spiritual energy, the tigers began to instinctively change. First, they were born with spirituality. Then, they began to instinctively absorb the spiritual energy in the valley. After absorbing the spiritual energy, they realized that their strength and abilities were constantly increasing, making them even more powerful. In the natural world, strength was the only law. After knowing the benefits of absorbing spiritual energy, they all began to absorb it. Those who were born with spirituality could be found everywhere. It was very prosperous. Until now, there were still hundreds of tigers in the valley. All of them had spirituality. They could be said to be blessed by nature. If nothing unexpected happened, they would continue to live like this and live as usual if they did not leave the valley. However, this peace was not broken by the 3 cultivators. The cultivators, who could fly, use all kinds of magic arts, and use all kinds of magical instruments and magic weapons, were simply like gods. As soon as they entered the valley, they went on a killing spree. They killed the tigers as soon as they saw them. The tigers used to be successful in killing ordinary beasts, but when it came to the cultivators, they were just like children playing house. On the surface, they were abnormally powerless. A large number of tigers died tragically under the butcher's knife. In the end, some demonic beast-level tigers desperately resisted the attacks from behind and let them escape. But then, those cultivators still caught up with them. What happened next was what they saw before. When Tion heard it, the purple mark on his forehead flickered continuously. His face was cold, as if his anger was about to erupt at any time. How could he not know? It must be the cultivators who coveted the demon bodies and the demon cores condensed from the essence of the demon beasts after they died. They would kill all of them when they saw them. This was the usual behavior of the cultivators. Humph! He snorted coldly and looked at them. Your valley is no longer safe. If you continue to stay, there will be problems sooner or later. If you don't have anywhere to go to my Myriad Demon Valley first. When you reach the valley, I will naturally arrange for you. Everything will wait for me to go back. He did not intend to say too much to them. In the clan, the strong had always been the king. Tian's own strength could be said to be vast to the tigers in front of him. They had long been respectful and in awe of him. The heaven-defying method just now had actually transmitted the cultivation method and the tiger roar sound wave technique into their minds out of thin air, making them look at Tian with the same kind of burning gaze. It was as if a savior had appeared in a crisis. That kind of feeling was almost fanatical, as if the seed of Tian had been directly planted in their hearts. It rose to the level of faith, and was the only thing they could rely on in their hearts. When they heard that Tian asked them to go to the Myriad Demon Valley, they did not have the slightest resistance. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.audiobook.com. Chidian. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 354. This time, the main purpose of coming out was to go to the 5 Elements mountain range. It was a complete accident that he met the Tiger Clan. It was impossible for him to return to the southern barbarian because of them. Speaking of which, with the speed of the tigers, it would take about 5 to 6 days to reach the southern barbarian. However, if they could enter the southern barbarian valley safely, it would also be a rare experience for them. Then, he directly imprinted the map of the southern barbarian into their minds and took out a jade talisman to roughly record what happened here. It also explained some things about how to arrange the tigers. The jade talisman was given to them. It was used to prove their identity after entering the southern barbarian valley. A talisman was inserted into each tiger's body. Critical moments they could save their lives. After doing this, he let them all go down. On the way, when he heard that the 3 demon beasts of the Tiger Clan didn't have a name yet, Tian thought about it and gave them a surname. Their surname was Hu, and the biggest one was Hu Zhantian, followed by Hu Jingtian, Hu Xiaotian. They would lead the clan to the 10,000 Demon Valley. Tiger was the clan's surname, but in Tian's heart, it had a deeper meaning. Tiger is the clan's surname. Anyone with the bloodline of the Tiger Clan can have the surname Tiger, but the real royal family of the clan should have the surname D. The Tiger Clan was his clan. When one person achieved the Tao, his chickens and dogs would ascend to the heavens. He would spend a lot of effort to improve the status of the Tiger Clan in the 10,000 Demon Valley and become the royal family of the Demon Clan in the valley. However, his family, his bloodline, should be the royal family of the royal family. The surname of D was the most appropriate. For example, Little White. For those close to him, it was not inappropriate to call him Little White. It was also a form of intimacy. However, if an unrelated stranger was also called Xiao Bai, that was an insult. Only with a name could one have a foothold. Tian pondered. The Tiger Clan had a surname, so Xiao Bai should also have his own name. His surname was D, so Xiao Bai should follow his surname. Alright, I'll give Xiao Bai a surprise when we return to the valley. A trace of gentleness flashed through Tian's heart. The floating cloud ship continued to move forward. It was hidden in the layers of clouds. The surrounding white clouds had a great concealment effect. Even if an ordinary person raised their head to look, they would only see patches of clouds. They wouldn't be able to see the shape of the floating cloud ship. After the episode, neither Tian nor Medusa was in the mood to continue the conversation. They were either meditating on the boat or enjoying the scenery below. On the way, they ran into several situations where the demons were being hunted. Tian, who was already in a bad mood, was blown into smithereens on the spot. What was weird was that the souls of the immortal cultivators who were blown to pieces disappeared into the purple mark on their forehead. It was as if his innate ability had not been taken away and was still there. It was extremely mystical. The 5 Elements mountain range stretched for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The mountain peaks rose and fell. They were steep and strange. Strange flowers and grasses covered every corner. There were ancient trees that were several zhang tall. Many wild beasts were freely hunting for food. It was very vast. In the center of the mountain range, there were 5 mountain peaks with different temperaments and shape. They emitted different auras. They were divided into the 5 peaks of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Each mountain peak was very strange because there was only a single type of spiritual energy of the 5 elements on top of them. For example, the mountain peak of metal element was filled with metal essence energy everywhere. It was sharp and murderous. If one practiced metal element cultivation techniques on top of it, they would definitely advance 1,000 miles in a day. There was also a sword tomb on top of it. Inside the sword tomb, there were countless sharp blades condensed from metal essence energy. The 5 mountains were of different attributes and belonged to the 5 elements. However, they were mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. When combined together, they formed a natural 5 elements great formation. The creation of nature was miraculous. It was truly a work of the gods that could not be fathomed. But now, in the sky above the 5 elements mountain range, there were streaks of light of various colors and even the sword light of flying swords. There were many of them in the sky above the 5 elements peak. There were many of them, one after another, rising and falling. From time to time there would be a strong aura emitted. In the sky above the mountain peak there would be colorful lights. Immortal cultivators rose into the sky one after another. Flying with the wind, it was really like a world of immortals. It was unknown how many immortal cultivators there were. They came and went one after another. It was difficult to count them all. In many places there were tents erected. Large groups of cultivators lived in them. There were also markets of various sizes that appeared from time to time. It was very lively inside. Cultivators looked back and forth in the markets, looking for the items they wanted. It was as if there was a large-scale festival held here. On the other side, demonic aura filled the air. The evil aura in the sky did not dissipate for a long time. Demonic flames filled the sky and filled the entire void. It was very strange. A large number of demons gathered in 2s and 3s, staring in the direction of the 5 elements peak. The hatred in their eyes was still deeply imprinted in the bottom of their hearts. With a casual glance, one would find that there were no less than 100,000 demons gathered in front of them. This number had probably occupied more than half of the remaining demons on the purple-gold mainland. Even if there were still demons, they would hide in the mountains and forests. There would not be too many of them. It could be said that at this moment, most of the elites of the demon race were gathered here. They were the real family asset. If they were destroyed, the demon race would not be far from extinction. However, when the demon race was united, they were unprecedentedly strong. At this moment, they were probably the strongest they had been in tens of thousands of years. They were not at a disadvantage when fighting against the entire immortal cultivation world. Relying on the powerful combat power of the 8 demon kings, they were able to level the situation. In this mountain range, they were in a stalemate. No one could do anything to the other. This had a lot to do with the mysterious departure of the cultivators above the tribulation stage in the immortal cultivation world. However, it was undeniable that at this moment, the immortal cultivation world could not afford to pay such a heavy price to fight the 8 demon kings and destroy the elites of the demon race in front of them. After all, there were many sects in the immortal cultivation world. It was very difficult to unite all of them. At this moment, on the demon race's side, a huge cave had been dug out in a valley. The cave was so wide that even if 1,000 people came in at the same time, it would not feel crowded. Here, there were 7 demon kings who were emitting a unique pressure and temperament. They surrounded a stone table. There were all kinds of food on the table. There was a large plate of sparkling and round rice that was like a pearl. This was pearl rice planted in a sect. It was a kind of spiritual rice. It contained spiritual energy and was sweet and delicious. Other kinds of spiritual fruits and wild game were placed on the table. They were exquisite and filled the whole table. There was wine, food, and spiritual fruit. There were many good things. Even the sect leader of a sect would be jealous of them. Among the 7 here, there were Silver Hair, the Blood Dragon King, the Golden Wing Bat King, and Bai Xian. The other 3 looked a little unfamiliar. However, since they were on the same level as them, their identities were obvious. Sitting at the head of the table was a white-robed man with a snow-white feather fan in his hand. He looked like a weak scholar. There was not the slightest hint of muscle on his body. His snow-white hair was tied up behind his head by a lavender ribbon. There was always a faint smile on his face. He waved the feather fan slightly. He had an extraordinary demeanor and had the style of Zhuge Liang. One of them sat under his silver hair. His face was very old, like a pine tree that had grown for tens of thousands of years. The hair on his head was very messy, but there seemed to be a huge breath of life in his old body. He was unbelievably strong. His turbid eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. The other one had 6 mustaches on his mouth that looked like a rat. He looked extremely wretched. Anyone who saw him at first glance would have the impression that he was a bad guy. As for the others, including Silver Hair and the others, there was a total of 7 people sitting here. It was disdainful to say that the people here were naturally 7 of the 8 great monster kings who were renowned throughout the world. The leader of the 8 demon kings was the white-robed young man who looked like a weak scholar. His name was the Snow Wing Rock Demon King. His original form was the Snow Wing Rock. He was born in the snow prison of the South Pole and had lived the longest. He was also one of the strongest among all the monster kings. The second was Silver Hair, who was known as the Nightmare Demon King. His original form was the extremely rare silver-winged dream butterfly. He was born with the ability to enter the dreams of living creatures. This escape was not done through his spiritual consciousness, but with his body. It was extremely strange. He relied on the ability to easily enter the dreams of others. His experience was immeasurably rich. Every dream he experienced was an experience for his spirit. His state of mind was also rare. If he could not control his state of mind and entered other people's dreams, he would be completely brought into the dream and be unable to distinguish the difference between reality and dream. He would sink into it. He would be doomed eternally. The third was the old man next to him. Although he looked old as if he was about to die at any time, he was a tree king who had lived for countless years. No one knew why his original form was an ancient tree. They only knew that the life force in his body was unbelievably strong. His demon chi was extremely deep. As long as there were trees in the forest, he could control all the ancient trees and stimulate the hidden power in those ancient trees that had lived for countless years. He could turn them into powerful treants with powerful combat strength. People called him the Ancient Demon Tree King. The fourth was by Xian, who seemed to be indifferent to everything. She was focused on the bamboo in her hand. She was a demon formed from invisible smoke. She was the most ethereal and mysterious. She almost had an immortal body. As long as a wisp of smoke escaped, she could reform her demon body in a short time. The bamboo in her hand was a mysterious spiritual root. The fifth was the Blood Dragon King. There was no need to say too much about his strange power. His original form was a mutated blood dragon. He was lascivious by nature. The sixth was the Golden-Winged Bat King. His original form was a golden-winged vampire bat. He was very evil. The seventh was the Sky-Devouring Rat King. He was also a mutated species left behind from ancient times. His innate ability was very powerful. In a desperate situation, there were not many who dared to fight him one-on-one. The last one was the Heavenly Fragrance Fox King, Su Tianxiang. Her origin was not inferior to any of the demon kings. She could be said to be the king of the Fox clan, the nine-tailed heavenly fox, also known as the nine-tailed demon fox. Unfortunately, she was not here at the moment. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 355. Each of the 8 great demon kings had strength that far exceeded that of ordinary demon kings. Their realm was called Demon King, but they were not demon kings who were called demon kings as soon as they condensed their inner cores. Instead, they had truly reached the realm of ancient demon kings. In other words, any one of them was an expert with a 4th transformation demon core. The 3rd transformation was the peak of the demon realm, while the 4th transformation was a completely different realm. After the 9th transformation was Demon Sage. Condensing an inner core was comparable to a nascent soul cultivator in the cultivation world. The first transformation was comparable to an out-of-body cultivator, the second transformation was comparable to a spirit-severing cultivator, the third transformation was comparable to a unity cultivator, and the fourth transformation was comparable to a tribulation transcendence cultivator. The demon race's demon body was far stronger than that of a human cultivator's. Their vitality was extremely vigorous, and when they fought, the combat power they could unleash was even more shocking. In a fight between cultivators of the same level, they were often more powerful than cultivators. If a demon race member who had condensed an inner core really went all out, they could match 2 or 3 nascent soul cultivators. In addition to their own talents and divine abilities, their strength would be even more ferocious. This was also the reason why the demon race was able to dominate the world and intimidate all living beings in the ancient times. Of course, the demon race was currently lacking in cultivation techniques, and all kinds of offensive demon techniques and divine abilities were extremely lacking. Even if they had condensed an inner core, they might not have any powerful technique. In a desperate fight, they would be extremely powerful if they could block 1 or 2 cultivators of the same level. However, the strength of the ancient demon kings was obvious. Each of them was comparable to a tribulation transcendence cultivator. When they fought, they could even match an immortal transformation cultivator. If they had a 5th transformation demon core, then even an immortal transformation cultivator in the cultivation world would be trampled to pieces. Thus, one could understand how powerful the 8 great demon kings were. Especially the most mysterious demon king, the Snow-Wing Rock Demon King, whose strength was above the other 7 demon kings. Old Meng, what do you think about this immortal demon competition? The Rock Demon King waved the feather fan in his hand and looked at Silverhair, who was holding a gourd and drinking fine wine. There was a kind of calmness in his voice, but the faint smile at the corner of his mouth did not change. He looked like a weak scholar. If one did not see it for themselves, no one would believe that the person before them was the strongest of the 8 fiend kings. Silverhair said sarcastically, not forgetting to pour a mouthful of spirit wine into his mouth. He said, "Everyone knows why the Immortals and Demons competition is held this time. The Immortal Cultivation Realm took advantage of the absence of our elites to launch a ruthless siege. This time, our demon tribe suffered a great loss and our foundation was damaged. Some of the new demon tribes with great potential were slaughtered. The loss is so great that we won't be able to recover even in 1,000 years." As he spoke, even the wine in his mouth seemed to contain a hint of bitterness. He gulped it down and said, "Even if the demon clan is unprecedentedly united, unleashing a huge potential and destroying hundreds of sects, it still can't make up for the huge losses we suffered this time. The world of cultivators wants to destroy our foundation. If it weren't for the 8 of us holding the fort here, I'm afraid they'll annihilate these elites in one fell swoop. All of the cultivators above the transcending tribulation stage have gone to that place, resulting in the current situation where neither of us can do anything to the other. However, this time, the conditions offered by those old foxes in the world of cultivators do not allow us to refuse. The demon transformation pool, even if there is a 1 in 10,000 chance, is worth us fighting for." Silverhair's eyes, which seemed to have seen through everything in the world, suddenly shot out 2 shocking rays of light, extremely sharp. It seemed to be able to pierce through everything. Similarly, in the eyes of the other 6 fiend kings, the same light flashed. "That's right. As long as there is a demon transformation pool, it's worth it even if we have to pay a huge price." Thinking about it, the demon transformation pool has been lost for countless years since ancient times. I didn't expect to hear it here. The Demon Tree King, whose face was full of vicissitudes, said in an unusually hoarse voice, "It's so hateful that the venue of the Immortals and Demons competition is actually in the Tower of Babel. This tower has always been easy to enter but difficult to leave. It connects to the underground abyss and suppresses the savage abyss. In the competition, the demon kings with the strength of ancient demon kings like us are not allowed to enter. The situation is worrying. There was also a trace of helplessness in his words. They don't allow us to enter. Do they really think these schemes will succeed? Silverhair said disdainfully. After the competition, I have already sent a voice transmission talisman to Tion. Seeing the talisman, with his temperament, he will definitely come to help. With his arrival, our demon clan may not lose this competition. If we add 8th Sister Tianxiang, there should be a certain chance of finding the whereabouts of the demon transformation pool. The demon transformation pool is the most precious treasure of our demon clan. If it is really sealed in the Tower of Babel, as those cultivators said, with the demon clan's bloodline, once we get close, we will sense it. 8th Sister rashly went to the land of the fallen gods. Although she found the heavenly treasure box, she suffered an irreparable injury and her cultivation fell to the demon king realm. Now, she is the most suitable candidate to go to the Tower of Babel. In addition to the Tian you mentioned, there may be a chance to take back the treasure. The rock demon king nodded slightly. He gently waved the feather fan in his hand and continued, however, if it really comes down to it, there is no need to care about those agreements. Even if we lose the competition, we must force our way into the Tower of Babel. If we don't find the demon transformation pool, our demon clan will sooner or later go to the end. If the demon clan has no successor, even with the few of us here, it will only exist in name. Hearing this, the demon kings present couldn't help but nod in agreement. Their expressions were different degrees of seriousness. The importance they attached to the demon transformation pool had reached an inestimable level. From their words, it seemed that for the sake of the demon clan, the so-called competition between the immortals and demons was no longer important. What was important was how to find the demon transformation pool. As long as they could obtain it, they wouldn't hesitate to pay a great price. There was a hidden implication that they would use any means necessary. If they knew what the demon transformation pool was, they wouldn't be surprised by their words. Speaking of the demon transformation pool, its reputation among the demon clan was no less than the demon summoning banner. This pool was the foundation for the continuation of the demon clan. Legend had it that in ancient times, a peerless expert of the demon clan had died in battle. At the end of his life, he had given up his last chance of survival and gathered all his life force together to form a pool. The water in the pool seemed to be formed from the blood of that peerless expert. It was a dark green color like amber. Inside the pool, there seemed to be an endless amount of demonic energy. There was an inconceivable mystery inside. Since then, the pool formed by the sacrifice of this peerless expert was known as the demonic transformation pool. Any demon would have a chance to bathe in the pool. Bathing in the pool could cleanse one's marrows and tendons and cleanse one's demonic body. It could increase one's potential. It was the best gift that Ancestor had bestowed upon the younger generation. This was not the most magical thing about it. It was another incredible ability that made it the most precious treasure of the demon clan. In the world, there was the purple thunder rain that could make thousands of birds, beasts, flowers, and trees gain intelligence and become demon bodies. However, the demon transformation pool had the same ability. As long as any bird or beast bathed in the pool once, an ordinary beast's body would instantly turn into a demon body and gain intelligence. It could transform into a demon body. As long as it existed, the demon clan would never go extinct. They would have an endless stream of descendants, endless growth. However, the demon chi in the pool would also be consumed by the demon transformation pool. Once it was exhausted, it would lose its effect. Therefore, the demon clan would always throw a large number of the corpses of their enemies into the demon transformation pool. The demon transformation pool was extremely beneficial to living beings. However, as for dead corpses, once they fell into the pool, They would instantly be decomposed into the demon transformation pool's demon chi, and used to create more new demon clan members. One was for new life, and the other was for devouring. In the ancient era, most of the enemies that were killed by the demon clan would be thrown into the demon transformation pool as nourishment. However, it was undeniable that the demon transformation pool was important to the demon clan. With it, the demon transformation pool could allow the demon clan to gain new life. In a short period of time, a large number of new demon clan members could be created to make up for the lack of demon clan members and the fact that it was too difficult for them to be born. It was enough to ensure that the demon clan would never go extinct. If they could obtain the demon transformation pool, the merit for the demon clan would be enough for future generations to worship. Brother D, we should be arriving soon. Silverhair looked out of the cave silently with a strange glint in his eyes. However, he was gulping down a few mouthfuls of spirit wine from time to time. The other monster kings also had thoughtful looks on their faces, as if they were thinking about something. The 5 elements chi here is unusually rich. There are many immortal cultivators in front and demonic aura on the other side. If I'm not wrong, this should be the 5 elements mountain range. Just as Silverhair was thinking about Di Shirtion, a huge spirit boat appeared at the edge of the 5 elements mountain range. Di Shirtion and Medusa stood at the bow of the boat and looked around. Seeing that the 5 elements chi in the mountain range was much richer than other places and that cultivators and demons were at odds with each other, how could they not know that this should be the 5 elements mountain range that Silverhair was talking about? The opposing scenes in the mountain range were clear. One side was filled with cultivators while the other side was filled with demonic aura. It was extremely distinct. If they could not even tell that, they could be blind. What should we do now? Medusa played with the ancient mirror and looked at Di Shirtion with a look that said, "I'll let you decide." Yes. Di Shirtion pondered for a moment and said, "The 5 elements mountain range is now the place where the immortal cultivation world and the demon clan are in a stalemate. According to Silverhair, if I'm not wrong, there should be 8 demon kings gathered here at this moment. Now that we're here, let's find Silverhair first and discuss other things. I'm still confused about the immortal demon competition." There was a glint in his eyes. He had come for the immortal demon competition. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he had to get involved in this competition. However, Silverhair had only mentioned the reason for the immortal demon competition in the Jade Talisman. He had not mentioned the details of the competition. Instinctively, he sensed that there was more to it than met the eye. Ha ha! Suddenly, just as Di Shirtion stopped the floating cloud boat in the sky above the mountain range, and did not move for the time being, a strange and charming laughter came from the void and reached Di Shirtion's ears. At the same time, the scenery in front of him suddenly changed. His whole body was inexplicably pulled from the 5 elements mountain range into a strange world. Di Shirtion's expression became serious and his eyes swept around. He saw that there was a dense ghost aura everywhere in front of him. It was a group of evil spirits with 2 horns on their heads. They had big mouths and mouths full of fangs. Their eyes were glowing with a green light. They were huge, and each of them was more than 2 meters tall. They were holding a slender and ferocious ghost blade in their hands. With a swoosh, they all stared at him. "Tsk, tsk." The evil spirit closest to Di Shirtion opened its mouth full of fangs and fiercely chopped down with its blade. A dense ghost aura completely enveloped the entire ghost blade. It was as fast as lightning, and the angle was very tricky. The ghost blade was confusing and unpredictable. It was very strange, and waves of chilling ghost howls continuously poured into one's mind. "Humph!" Xiao Chen let out a heavy snort. He stretched out his hand and slapped the scabbard on Tiger Soul. Tiger Soul let out a low but domineering tiger roar. The saber flew out of the scabbard and flew above his head. Xiao Chen stretched out his right hand and grabbed Tiger Soul's slender saber hilt. The moment he grabbed it, Tiger Soul also let out a cheerful cry. It carried a bloodthirsty aura and looked forward to fighting side by side with its master and drinking the enemy's blood. Gotcha! The moment he grasped Tiger Soul, he felt that Tiger Soul was like his own arm. The feeling of being connected by blood was perfectly presented in his heart. The tiger opened its eyes and shot out two oppressive lights that seemed to be able to pierce people's eyes and blind them. The golden blade slashed out diagonally and pulled out a golden blade screen in midair. It engulfed the evil spirit and instantly cut it in two. It turned into smoke and dissipated. But then, the evil spirits around him, which were like an ocean, stared at him with green eyes like a tide. They waved their battle blades and let out strange ghost cries. They crazily surged toward Tion. Countless ghost blades fell from the sky and covered the earth. His entire body was instantly covered by countless attacks. Kill! After Sakura killed that evil spirit, the Tiger Soul in his hand did not stop in the slightest. Facing the sea of thousands of ghosts, not only was he not afraid, he even took a heavy step forward. This step looked like the walk of a dragon or a tiger. As he walked, it also carried an arrogant and domineering aura. A tragic murderous aura shot out as the Tiger Soul slashed one blade after another. It was simple yet carried an extremely powerful murderous aura. He was as fast as lightning, but at the same time, he looked extremely slow. He slashed out hundreds of times, and the afterimages of Tiger Soul appeared in front of him. His saber skills were even more exquisite than before. The power contained in each saber strike was just right. Every saber strike was exquisite. It was as if each saber strike was following the trajectory of the heavens and earth. It carried an endless power and was unstoppable. Although there were many evil spirits in front of him, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered under Tiger Soul. With every slash, a large number of evil spirits were killed on the spot. The evil spirits in the sky could not touch his clothes at all. Roar! Brandishing his blade a few times, Indra's long hair fluttered wildly behind his back. He suddenly faced the sky and let out a tyrannical tiger roar. This tiger roar seemed to be able to shatter the heavens. The surrounding space was violently trembling, and countless evil spirits were instantly annihilated. After the tiger roar, a sound wave like a wave rapidly spread out in all directions. Wherever the sound waves passed, the space distorted. Large numbers of evil spirits were destroyed as if they were grass being cut. In the blink of an eye, the entire space was cleared. Not a single evil spirit was spared. Clang! Tiger Soul returned to its scabbard. Tion said indifferently, "Tian Xiang, that's enough joking. You should be able to come out now." He stood in this strange space with a calm expression. There was not a hint of worry on his face. He raised his voice and said, "Ha ha." As soon as his voice fell, a burst of laughter that was as clear as a silver bell rang out. That laughter was so loud that even one's bones were about to fall off. Amidst the laughter, a peerless beauty wearing a plain white robe with a ribbon around her waist and a lavender wooden hairpin on her head appeared out of thin air with a sweet smile on her face. Her figure was graceful and graceful. Every time she smiled, there was a soul-stirring charm. It was as if she was truly a masterpiece of the heavens. Her beauty could not be described with words that could cause the downfall of a city. It was certain that the men in front of her would be intoxicated by her boundless charm at first sight. They would be unable to extricate themselves and be driven by her. Whether it was anger or laughter, they all had a bewitching power that could steal one's soul. Her charm was innate. It was a unique charm that she was born with. Waves of strange fragrance drifted in all directions. It made one unconsciously lose themselves in it. It was none other than the heavenly fragrance fox monarch, Su Tianxiang. Sure Tian, I didn't expect you to become so powerful in just a few years. Not only have you condensed an inner core, but you've also broken through to the first transformation of the Yaodan. Looking at the depth of your cultivation, I'm afraid you're already at the peak of the first transformation. You're only a step away from the second transformation. You dared to barge into the heavenly demon's secret realm and cross the heavenly yin-yang bridge. Even the illusion I set up now can't do anything to you. To be honest, your speed of growth has surprised even me. Su Tianxiang's arms were wrapped around the ribbon, which hung in front of her. She descended from the void step by step. Every step she took caused ripples in the void under her feet. Her clear voice came out of her seductive red lips, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, magnifying her charm. Looking at Sakura, who was standing proudly in front of him, his body was tall and straight like an eternal ancient peak that had existed since ancient times, proud and unyielding, with his usual indifference and majesty between his eyebrows. He secretly sighed in his heart. 10 years, in just 10 years, he could actually grow from an ignorant and ordinary king of beasts to today's height. Sure Tian, oh sure Tian, what kind of weirdo did I create with a single thought back then? If there was anyone in this world who understood Di Sure Tian the most, it would undoubtedly be her. Starting from Tiger Hill, she gave Di Sure Tian a bottle of spirit-gathering pills with a single thought, which allowed him to embark on the path of demon cultivation and establish his foundation. In just 10 years, he grew from nothing to a demon monarch with a first transformation of the Yaodan. How many levels had he crossed in this process? To them, a short 10 years was like a snap of the fingers. Yet Di Sure Tian had grown to such an unimaginable level. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. Tianxiang, Di Sure Tian looked at Bai Hu with a hint of complexity in his eyes. He could only call out her name and couldn't continue. Haha, Sure Tian, after so many years, don't you have anything to say to me when we meet again? If that's the case, this little fox will be very sad. Tianxiang's eyes revealed a hint of slyness. She chuckled as she spoke, and at the same time, she pretended to cover her heart with a heartbroken expression. That sorrowful expression made people feel pity for him even though they knew it was fake. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author and I support the original readers. Chapter 356. Di Sure Tian's mind was shaken, but the Imperial Tyrant Heart Mantra in the Imperial Book of Shocking the World made his state of mind extremely tough. My body is the Emperor, and my heart is the Emperor's heart. Nothing can affect my mind. He recovered from his momentary loss, but he was still in awe. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This Bai Hu was really a demon. Her every move and smile could charm all living things. This invisible charm was innate. If she used some charming means, even a Buddha with a pure heart and few desires would abandon Buddhism and become a demon. Don't use your charming power on me. Taking a deep breath, he frowned slightly and looked at Bai Hu. Humph, you are really a block of wood. Bai Hu heard this and couldn't help but curl her lips. She said slightly angrily, I don't know if you still remember the agreement I made with you back then. A pair of beautiful eyes fell on Di Sure Tian's face and looked at him seriously. It seemed that she was trying to find the expression she wanted on his face. I remember. 16 years later, I will go to the Green Mountains to find you, Di Sure Tian said calmly. The ribbon on Bai Hu's wrist fluttered. When she heard him say the agreement without hesitation, she nodded slightly and said with satisfaction, You still have some conscience and didn't forget the agreement we made back then. Otherwise, I won't let you go easily. At that time, what you will see will not be those useless little demons, but a large group of demons. As she said this, she waved her hand slightly in front of her, and a cloud pavilion appeared directly. In the pavilion, there was a pot of warm wine that had been boiled. There were some mellow spiritual fruits on it that could relieve fatigue. They entered the pavilion and sat down opposite each other. Bai Hu warmed the wine and poured a cup for each of them. This wine was a part of the monkey wine that she had taken from the Demon Valley. Although the taste of the wine was the same, the state of mind was particularly different. Looking at Bai Hu before him, Xiao Chun had a complicated expression in his eyes. The past flowed in his heart like a clear spring. When he recalled that she was one of the 8 fiend kings, he could not help but frown slightly. He asked, "Tianxiang, have you recovered from your injuries? What spirit herbs do you need? I can get them for you." "Hee, little Shirtian, you're showing concern for me." Bai Hu's eyes flashed with a trace of a smile. "Don't worry. In this continent, there aren't many people who can take my life. Even those cultivators who haven't reached the transcending tribulation realm are no match for me. If they don't take advantage of the fact that I'm seriously injured to launch a sneak attack, they won't be my match in a direct confrontation. However, it's also fortunate that I was able to meet you in a desolate place like Tiger Hill." Xiao Yen chuckled. She reached out her jade-like hand and pinched a sparkling and translucent vermilion fruit from the jade plate in front of the table. She brought it to her lips. What exactly happened back then? Logically speaking, each of the 8 fiend kings should have the strength of a true fiend king. At the very least, they should have reached the 4th transformation realm of the demon core realm. Nowadays, all the cultivators above the transcending tribulation realm in the immortal cultivation realm have mysteriously left. Coupled with the demon clan's innate magical abilities, there shouldn't be anyone on this continent who can seriously injure you. However, back then, you were chased by a nascent soul realm cultivator. Di Shirtian seriously looked at Bai Hu's charming face. He frowned slightly and asked a question that had been in his heart for a long time. Indeed, ever since he found out that Bai Hu was one of the 8 fiend kings, he had always been puzzled. If she was one of the 8 fiend kings, then her cultivation definitely wouldn't be lower than that of an ancient fiend king. After all, the title of fiend king was based on the ancient fiend king's cultivation. However, the first time he saw her, she was chased by a mere nascent soul realm cultivator at Tiger Hill. If she truly had the strength of an ancient fiend king, then wouldn't a nascent soul realm cultivator be like an ant in front of her? She could crush them with a single finger. How could she be chased by a nascent soul realm cultivator? There was clearly something strange about this. Now that they met again, he couldn't see through Bai Hu's true cultivation at first glance. This deepened the puzzlement in his heart. He guessed that perhaps something unusual happened back then, which caused her to suffer some kind of serious injury. Bai Hu heard him and rolled her eyes at him. However, she just smiled faintly. She picked up the wine cup and took a sip. As if she didn't want to talk about this topic, she directly changed the topic and said, "That's all in the past. There's no need to talk about it. By the way, I see that you've improved by leaps and bounds. The demon weapon in your hand is also extraordinary. I'm afraid that you're already the strongest among the 8 fiend kings. This time, I heard that second brother Meng wanted to invite you here. It seems that you want to participate in this immortal demon competition." She changed the topic to the immortal demon competition. Di Shirtian naturally wasn't someone who was easy to fool. However, seeing the white fox's words, it was obvious that she wasn't willing to mention the matter of that year again. If he were to forcefully drag the topic back, it would instead be awkward. He wasn't someone who liked to force others. Besides, the immortal demon competition was the same. He was very curious about it, so he went with the flow. Well, this time, the immortal cultivation world suddenly acted ruthlessly and wanted to destroy the foundation of the demon clan. I'm also a member of the demon clan. There's no reason for me not to come. However, Silver Hair only briefly mentioned the competition in the Jade Talisman. I'm not very clear about the details. Now that I've met you, I think you should be very clear about it. If possible, I hope you can explain it to me. He looked at Bai Hu calmly, but quickly looked away. He picked up the wine cup and poured it into his mouth. Then, he picked up a few spiritual fruits and ate casually. He didn't say anything polite. Hee. Bai Hu pursed her lips and chuckled. She looked at him meaningfully with a serious expression. To be honest, I didn't expect you to come. However, the immortal demon competition this time is indeed very important. The competition isn't about winning or losing. Not about winning or losing. Chertion raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Could there be more to it?" Although it was a question, his tone was almost certain. The competition wasn't about winning or losing, but it was so important. There must be something that caught their attention. Almost instantly he thought of this. Yes. The white fox nodded approvingly and said, "The competition this time is not simple. The location is not here, but at the Tong Tian Tower. The reason why we agreed was because the cultivators said that the demon clan's most precious treasure, the demon transformation pool, is sealed within the tower. This demon transformation pool is far too important to our demon clan. Compared to it, the outcome of the competition is secondary. As long as we can obtain the demon transformation pool, it doesn't matter if we win or lose the competition." What, the Tower of Babel? The demon transformation pool? Why would the demon clan's treasure be sealed in the Tower of Babel? Before Chertion could guess what these two things were, dark screams sounded in his mind. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, he could imagine that it must be blowing its dragon whiskers and widening its eyes in the purple eye. "Dark, do you know about the Tower of Babel and the demon transformation pool?" Chertion asked in his mind. He who didn't know about the Tower of Babel and the demon transformation pool in ancient times. Since we've met today, I'll tell you about it. Otherwise, people will say that I'm ignorant. Nether let out two strange cries and spoke about the origins of these two items. There was no need to say more about the demon transformation pool. After Chertion heard about it, he understood how important the demon transformation pool was to the demon clan. It was related to the demon clan's inheritance. With it around, the demon clan couldn't destroy it. It was just that after ancient times, its whereabouts were unknown. That was why the demon clan ended up in its current state. As for the Tower of Babel, well, its origins were not ordinary. In ancient times, the purple gold continent was the origin of heaven and earth. It was the source of all the worlds in the universe. However, at that time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was so abundant that it couldn't be any more abundant. The people who lived on the continent were all races that were unbelievably powerful. Among them, the most terrifying and powerful race was not the demon race, but the barbarian race. Rather than the barbarian clan, they were more like savage beasts. At that time, life in the world was the most ancient. Because of the abundance of spiritual energy, all living things in the world were born with spiritual intelligence. This was the origin of the demon clan. However, the demon clan wasn't the most ancient existence at that time. Speaking of which, the first creatures to survive on the Zijin continent were the savage beasts. What were savage beasts? Among them, they had the word beast. In fact, it wasn't wrong to call them wild beasts. It was just that they were cruel by nature. The blood in their bodies was born with a kind of violent power. They liked to kill and were extremely irritable. Moreover, their sense of territory was extremely strong. Most savage beasts had relatively low intelligence, similar to the current ordinary birds and beasts. However, every one of them was extremely terrifying. Just for example, there was a savage beast called the reaper mantis. Its two forelimbs were like two blood-red scythes. Its body was very tall and sturdy, and its sides were even sharper. With a casual wave, it could cut a small mountain. When it fought, the frenzied reaper mantis could slash hundreds of times in an instant. It was terrifyingly sharp. Moreover, in ancient times, every one of them contained an incredible and terrifying power. It was extremely terrifying. Their numbers were incomparably huge. Just like ordinary wild beasts, there would be a nest of them. Their numbers were unbelievably huge. During that time, it was almost completely a world of savage beasts. This period of history was called the wilderness, especially before ancient times. As soon as the demon clan was born, they immediately started a fierce battle with the savage beasts. In order to survive, they were fighting almost all the time. Back then, it could be said to be an extremely tragic era. Through countless massacres, the oldest batch of powerhouses had also grown. They used the comprehension in the battles and nature as their teacher to create the most ancient cultivation technique. The demon clan was very powerful, especially those who could transform into demons in ancient times. Every one of them had accumulated strength for countless years. Once they transformed into demons, they would have incredible power. However, even so, compared to the overlords of the wilderness, they were still a far cry. In front of the terrifying savage beasts, the demon clan's living space shrank time and time again. They were oppressed to the point where they were almost annihilated. During that most difficult period, an expert of the demon clan, for some unknown reason, discovered a heaven-reaching pagoda. This heaven-reaching pagoda was something he saw with his own eyes. It grew from the ground layer by layer. It was indomitable. It was impossible to estimate how tall the heaven-reaching pagoda was. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens. He didn't know what kind of benefits that expert had gained after witnessing the growth of the Tower of Babel. But he didn't say anything. He returned to the Yao race and called a few people close to him. After giving them a few instructions, he immediately went to the Tower of Babel and started a strange blood sacrifice. The Tower of Babel erupted with brilliant light. It covered the entire Zijin continent. A vortex appeared in the heaven-reaching pagoda. Wherever the light went, all the savage beasts, no matter how strong they were all wiped out. They were like wheat under a sickle. The savage beasts that had dominated the continent for countless years disappeared without a trace in a short day. It was as if they didn't exist at all. This also announced the end of the era of the savage beasts. Back in the ancient times. Later, the demon clan went to look for that expert. However, they didn't find anything. They only found out that the expert had started a strange blood sacrifice. The blood sacrifice required his entire life. What happened back then was an unsolvable mystery even in the ancient times. But since then, it was discovered that the savage beasts that had been taken away were living in the heaven-reaching pagoda. It was as if the savage beasts were moved from the continent to the heaven-reaching pagoda in a day. No one could explain why this happened. However, there were many experts who coveted the inconceivable power of the Tower of Babel and wanted to refine it. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Those who tried to refine it, no matter who they were, all died strangely in a mysterious blood sacrifice. Even the peerless experts were the same. At that time, all the experts understood that the heaven-reaching pagoda wasn't a powerful spiritual treasure. Instead, it was an unpredictable existence. It was indestructible, immovable, and immortal. With this precedent, no one dared to have any ideas about it. But the heaven-reaching pagoda became an unusual existence. Many experts didn't want to touch this thing. However, the savage beasts taken in by the pagoda took root in the pagoda and occupied the entire pagoda. From the bottom to the top, the strength of the savage beasts on each level was different. The stronger the savage beasts, the higher the level they lived in. Those on the first level were the weakest of the savage beasts. But they were not ordinary people who could stroke the tiger's whiskers. On the contrary, many experts liked to train in the pagoda. As long as they didn't die, their cultivation would increase greatly when they came out. But this training didn't have the support of elders. There was no superiority in the pagoda. Facing the savage beasts, the weak had to die. Only the strong could survive. This was an invisible rule. The heaven-reaching pagoda has such a mysterious origin. Tian frowned slightly. He didn't expect the heaven-reaching pagoda to have such a great origin. He didn't expect there to be a wildland before the ancient times. As for the savage beasts, that was something he had never heard of. If it wasn't for Ming, he wouldn't have known about these secrets that even the ancient experts didn't know. The heaven-reaching pagoda is not a place to play. Not even 1 out of 10 people can come out. But those savage beasts are full of treasures. If you can come out, you will have a great harvest. Back then, my master took me in once and almost didn't come out. Ming didn't know if he was trying to attract or scare him. He just kept shouting. I will never forget that I met a strange savage bull in there. Its eyes were so powerful that even my divine soul would be annihilated when it stared at me. If it wasn't for my master's strength, I would have died there. There was a trace of fear in his words. It's so scary. Sakura furrowed his brows and began to think about why the immortal cultivation world would place the competition in the Tower of Babel. It should be impossible for them not to know the dangers in the tower. But knowing this, they still did it. Then the trick in it was worth it. For the demon transformation pool. He raised his head to look at Bai Hu and said in a deep voice. White Fox smiled calmly. He poured the wine and said, Yes, the demon transformation pool is too important to the demon clan now. Even if we have to pay a high price to get it back, any price is worth it. He paused and continued, When the time comes, I will go in with you. The heaven-reaching pagoda is very dangerous. There are savage beasts everywhere. How can you be sure that the demon transformation pool is inside? If this is just a cover to trick us into going in, wouldn't we be courting death? Di Shurtian felt a little heavy. He finally understood the function of the demon transformation pool. It was exactly the same as the purple thunder rain. It could indeed continue the bloodline of the demon clan. But the key was whether this news was true or false. If it was true, there was no harm in taking the risk. But if it was false, the consequences would be the loss of countless elites of the demon clan. It was possible that they would never be able to recover. No, it's not just the demon transformation pool. There's also the blood of savage beasts. The White Fox looked at Sakura seriously and said, Do you know about the blood of the savage beasts? According to legends, the blood essence in the heart of the savage beasts is the most essential part of their body. It contains enormous amount of energy and is used to enlighten the demon race. Just 1 drop is enough to turn a piece of rotten wood into a demon. It can be used to refine Dawn. It can be used to refine blood god Dawn that only existed in the ancient times. Every pill contains a huge amount of pure energy. A low-grade blood god Dawn can increase one's cultivation by hundreds of years. High-grade and top-grade ones are even more incredible. Since you want to enter the Tong Tian Tower, whether it's the demon transformation pool or savage beasts, as long as it's possible, you have to collect as much blood as possible. The blood of savage beasts contains a huge amount of pure energy. If you want to increase your cultivation, the Tong Tian Tower is the most suitable place. The White Fox seemed to be consciously explaining these secrets to Sakura which other people wouldn't normally talk about. It then continued, Fortune and misfortune are mixed in the pagoda, life and death are hard to predict. However, those who came out would definitely have a huge increase in their cultivation because they ate the meat and drank the blood of the savage beasts. The strength of savage beasts is all in their flesh and blood. It's hard not to increase their strength by eating and drinking like this. Di Shurtian rarely interjected. He listened quietly and tried his best to absorb these things that were usually hard to know. This space was really strange. Bai Hu mentioned that it was an illusion formed by her special ability. However, even if the Medusa outside were close to each other, she would not know what was happening here. It was very strange. Speaking of which, the Bai Hu was definitely a race blessed by the heavens. Each of the 9 tails possessed an innate ability. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 357. The Nine-Tailed Celestial Fox, when cultivated to the highest level, would grow 9 tails behind her back. Every day, each tail would bestow her with an innate magical power. In other words, once she really grew into the legendary 9-tailed celestial fox, she would have 9 incredible magical powers. From past experience, the magical powers bestowed by each tail were very wonderful, unique. Therefore, in the demon clan, the 9-tailed celestial fox was also a very unique existence. It was said that in ancient times, there was a 9-tailed celestial fox in the Fox clan. Her strength was really strong. She was born with the ability to seduce, almost enough to subvert all living things, make the world lose its color, make all things wither, and thousands of women ashamed to death. That kind of beauty could no longer be described with word. It could be said to be the extreme of the art of seduction, making countless experts crazy. Since they were blessed by the heavens, but also envied by the heavens, so that every generation of the celestial fox lineage, there would only be one survivor. The two would not meet, and if they did, there was bound to be a disaster. They would fall into a situation where they would die a horrible death. Was it good luck or bad luck? No one could really make a conclusion about it. Blood god elixir? Listening to Baihu's endless talk, as if she wanted to make up some knowledge for him, Di Shirtion, while listening, seemed to have a flash of lightning in his mind. He suddenly remembered that he had seen the name of a kind of spirit wine in the wine god's treasure book, which seemed to be called emerald blood amber wine. Although because of the restriction placed by the wine god, he could only see the names of those spirit wines, but to know all the wine recipes, he had to brew the previous spirit wines one by one. Soaking the previous page in the wine with the spirit wine would open the second page of the spirit wine, which would show the brewing method and illustration of the spirit wine. Take the previous example. The first spirit wine was brewed, mysterious azure ice fire wine. After soaking it according to the method, the second illustration of the wine god's treasure book appeared, which recorded a spirit wine called Dream of 1,000 Years. This wine was very interesting. It did not increase cultivation or temper the body, but it could make people feel like they were dreaming of 1,000 years. Drinking it could make you recall many memories of the past. It was as if he had been dreaming for a long time. It was very interesting. Sometimes, drinking this kind of wine would actually result in a very good harvest. Perhaps, because of it, one of the demons in one's heart would be freed, and even one's mental state would be improved. Sometimes, memories were worth looking forward to. Maybe you can find something beautiful that you want to do but can't do. The recipe for this kind of spirit wine was actually not complicated. The most important thing was that it required a spirit quenching called dream recall grass, along with some other spirit herbs and spirit herbs. Only then could it be brewed. However, this kind of wine needed to be stored for at least 1,000 years before its effects could be completely brewed. Therefore, it could be considered quite rare. The dream recall grass happened to be obtained from a demon on Misty Wave Island. It was transplanted into the Shenong's paradise map, and the other ingredients were not difficult to find. It had been brewed long ago. Now, it was placed in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. With the pagoda's ability to reverse time, it sped up the brewing process. If it was placed in the second level, it would take about 20 years outside. With the reversal of time in the wine god's gourd, it would take another 10 times, and the time would be shortened. Calculating the time, it would not be long before it could be taken out and used. I wonder if the emerald blood amber wine would have an even more miraculous effect if it was brewed with the blood of savage beasts. Di Shirtion inexplicably flashed through his mind. Who wouldn't want their cultivation speed to be faster? However, that group of cultivators said that we ancient demon kings are not allowed to participate in this competition. Moreover, Boss and the others really can't move easily. If they leave rashly, that group of cultivators might have ill intentions towards the other demons. It's only right to be on guard. In the end, after revealing most of the things that it knew, the white fox furrowed its brows and said one thing. Silverhair and the others are not allowed to participate in the competition? Deshirtian's eyes shot out a ray of light, and he muttered, if the immortal cultivation world sends out a large number of cultivators above the nascent soul stage, I'm afraid we'll be at a disadvantage. How could he not know that in the current demon race, there was a huge gap in strength? It wasn't that there weren't any experts. The 8 great demon kings were all experts of the ancient demon king realm. However, the number of experts below them was exceedingly few. For example, those who had reached the first revolution of the demon core realm like Indra could be counted with one's fingers. In this way, it was almost obvious that they were at a disadvantage. Hee. Baihu chuckled meaningfully and shifted her body. The 2 peaks in front of her chest trembled a few times, full of temptation. Deshirtian felt his mouth go dry, and he shifted his gaze to the side. Shirtian, don't worry too much. This time they missed me. The injury I suffered last time was too serious. Although I have been quietly recuperating, I still haven't completely recovered. I haven't recovered the strength I had in the past, so I can participate in the competition. After staying in this illusion for a while, Baihu also removed the illusion. In a flash, in front of the floating cloud ship, Deshirtian and Baihu were standing in the void facing each other. Medusa was holding the strange mirror in her hand. A layer of clear light burst out from the mirror, shining in all directions. At this moment, the mirror was shining on Deshirtian and the others. Heavenly Fragrance Fox King, one of the 8 great demon kings, we've met before. After seeing Deshirtian and the others appear, Medusa's eyes flashed with a strange color, and she nodded to Baihu. In the southern barbarian lands, they were not rare. They were familiar with each other. As soon as they saw her, they immediately understood that the laughter from before should be from her. They looked at each other and saw that nothing had happened. Clearly, it was just a trick to tease them. They didn't care. Sister Medusa, I haven't seen you for a few years. Your cultivation has improved greatly. Congratulations. I'm afraid it won't be long before you catch up with me, Baihu said with a chuckle. The surrounding breeze blew, and the ribbon in her hand fluttered in the wind, like a fairy descending to the mortal world, filled with a bit of brilliance. Sister, you flatter me. Medusa smiled faintly. Back on the ship, under the guidance of Baihu, they soon arrived at the valley where the demon clan gathered. As soon as they arrived, Silverhair and the others stood in the valley and waited. When they met, they had to be polite and introduced to each other. Fortunately, the demon clan didn't have too many complicated formalities. After introductions, they ate and drank together. As they chatted, they began to get familiar with each other. Deshirtian also got to know the other 3 demon kings for the first time, and his impression of them was not bad. In particular, the leader of the demon kings, the blood-winged rock demon king, was very curious about this seemingly weak demon king. Among the 8 demon kings, it seemed that each of them had an extremely strong pressure, but he only vaguely sensed a trace of a relatively dangerous aura from the rock demon king. Although this aura only lasted for a moment, it made him understand that the rock demon king was the leader of the demon kings. He was fully deserving of this title and definitely had the strongest strength. Hidden in this body, if it were to erupt, it would definitely have a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth. That day, he directly opened a large cave in the valley and temporarily settled down inside. Hey, this curse mark is reacting at this time. Naturally, opening a cave was not difficult. There was no need to decorate the inside. He directly made a bed and sat cross-legged on it. Just as he was about to begin his daily routine of cultivation, he suddenly saw the strange mark on his right hand. The mark was in the shape of a pitch-black skull. The eyes on the skull were emitting a strange green light, as if they were alive and were staring at him. This mark was the strange curse mark that was formed when a black gas rushed into his hand after he killed the young master of the 5 Elements sect in the heavenly demon secret realm. However, there had been no changes all this time. If he wanted to dispel it, He did not know where to start. It was not that he had not tried, but this thing was very strange. If he dispelled it today, it would mysteriously appear again the next day, like a parasite in a tarsal bone. Over time, when he saw that it was not harmful, he temporarily put it aside. The person who died under my saber-back then seemed to have said that he was the young master of the Five Elements sect. This is the Five Elements mountain range. According to Silverhair, there is a large sect called the Five Elements sect in the mountain range. Could it be here? Tion looked at the skull mark on the back of his hand and thought to himself. In the past, he did not know the art of curses. However, now that he had obtained the inheritance of the curse mark from the ancient scroll, although he was still not very clear about it, he had a general understanding of the art of curses. To put it bluntly, the art of curses was a art of curses. Now that the art of curses was lost, and because they were too strange, they were called curses by the world. However, their power was actually the same. I did not expect to meet the person who cast the art of curses here. It seems that the sect master of the Five Elements sect should be the relative of the cultivator I killed back then. However, it will be a little troublesome to remove this art of curses. Removing this kind of art of curses was neither difficult nor easy. It was very simple. In fact, as long as the person who cast the art of curses was killed, the art of curses used to track and lock onto the target would naturally dissipate. It was not an overly powerful art of curses. It was only used for revenge. With the art of curses, even if they were thousands of miles away, one could clearly sense the other party's presence and launch a pursuit. It could be said that one would not rest until one was dead. He raised his eyes and looked towards the direction of the Five Elements peak. With this glance, even the thick stone walls were unable to obstruct his gaze. A sharp glint shot out from his eyes, and within the indifference was a ghastly killing intent. That's fine as well. If they don't provoke me, then so be it. If they come looking for trouble, then I'll kill both their sons and their fathers. After spitting out these words, he no longer paid attention to the skull imprint in his hand that was still flashing with a strange light. He closed his eyes and activated his art of cultivation, urging the Emperor's true force to circulate in the demonic veins around his body. The branches on the demonic veins also seemed to be glowing with vitality, spreading to the surrounding flesh and blood, constantly working hard to grow. Sooner or later, these branches would also connect with each other, covering every inch of the body's flesh and blood, connecting to form a complete meridian diagram. All around, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth madly rushed into his body, directly forming a spiritual chi vortex outside his body. At the same time, countless pitch-black power of desire was sucked into the demonic veins like a funnel, rushing into the third-grade Black Lotus in the demonic palace. The third-grade Black Lotus seemed to never stop, quickly rotating in the jade cauldron. Every time it absorbed a bit of spiritual chi and power of desire, the luster on its surface seemed to become more lively and rich. The 10 art of curses that seemed to grow on the Black Lotus strangely flew out from the Black Lotus, following the rotation of the Black Lotus, dancing in the surroundings, absorbing the surrounding energy. Even their light became much brighter. Old Meng, the Tion you invited is indeed extraordinary. Look! At this moment, in the sky above the valley, the Rock Demon King, dressed in white and holding a feather fan in his hand, stood side by side with Silverhair, looking at the cave opened by Tion. In the eyes of ordinary people, there might not be any difference, but they could see that the spiritual chi in the valley was rapidly converging towards him. Waving his feather fan, he smiled faintly and said, "He just started cultivating, but he was able to snatch more than half of the spiritual chi in the valley, and his speed is so fast. It seems that his cultivation is only at the first transformation realm, but in this situation, even among the 8 great demon kings, he is inferior. Do you see, the one beside him is 8th sister. He can even take more than half of her spiritual chi. Not simple, He is indeed blessed by the heavens. His talent is extraordinary." His words were filled with amazement, admiration, and more or less revealed a surprised expression. There was a trace of indescribable respect. Silverhair drank a mouthful of wine, his eyes full of vicissitudes swept a glance, and said indifferently, "Brother D has passed several stages in the path of questioning heart in the secret realm. His potential is so great that it is immeasurable. With his cultivation speed, it won't be long before another Demon King level powerhouse appears in our demon clan. Even surpassing you and me may not be a difficult matter." To be honest, Silverhair had definitely poured a lot of energy into Indra. Back then, in the secret realm, he had discovered that Indra actually had such a huge breakthrough. Not only had he reached the first transformation realm, he had even reached the peak of the first transformation realm. It seemed that he could step into the second transformation realm at any time. This kind of cultivation speed was extremely shocking. Monster, it was really a monster's cultivation speed. Yes, to be honest, after seeing D. Shirtion, I really don't want him to go to the Tong Tian Tower. If he dies there, the loss to our demon clan is almost irreparable. Even I can't see through his potential. Rock Demon King shook his head slightly. Don't worry, I believe that he is definitely a prodigy with great luck. He won't die so easily. Silverhair seemed to be very confident as he laughed. Bang! At this moment, in a quiet room on 5 Elements Peak, a valiant middle-aged man was staring at a strange mirror painting in the void with his eyes wide open. He stretched out his hand and pointed at an incense burner at the side. A sharp golden sword chi bombarded the incense burner, instantly shattering the huge incense burner on the spot. Even the magic crown on his head was emitting rings of 5-colored light. The anger in his heart seemed to be about to shoot out directly from his eyes. Looking carefully at the mirror painting in the void, what appeared in the painting was the scene of D. Shirtion sitting cross-legged in the cave, cultivating. It was actually able to see his whereabouts out of thin air. Looking at D. Shirtion's figure, if this person's gaze could kill, he would have killed him thousands of times in an instant and dismembered him into pieces. His eyes were filled with extremely dense hatred, and even his face became extremely ferocious. He gritted his teeth and said, "Good, good, good. Demon race, if I, Deng Tianhua, don't personally cut you into pieces, how can I vent the hatred in my heart? How can I avenge my son's blood feud? Not only will I cut you into pieces, but I will also bury the entire demon race with my son." When the cold voice was spat out, gusts of bone-chilling cold wind blew in the entire quiet room out of nowhere. He clenched his fists tightly, and even his nails cut his palms and blood flowed out. He didn't care at all. He just stared coldly at the mirror painting in front of him. Bang! At this moment, D. Shirtion in the mirror painting seemed to have sensed something. He raised his eyes and looked at Deng Tianhua. His gaze seemed to be able to break through the boundary of space and see him through the mirror. The entire mirror painting suddenly suffered a great deal of damage. With a bang, it collapsed into countless pieces and dissipated into nothingness. This wasn't the real mirror painting, but the manifestation of a kind of supernatural power. Humph! Deng Tianhua's eyes were fierce and he said coldly, "I have found you. Let's see where you can escape to. Since you are here, you must be here to participate in the Immortal Demon competition. Good, this time I will let you die without a complete corpse. Don't even think about participating in the competition. 8 great demon kings won't be able to stop me. Come out." With a shout, a large crack appeared at the bottom of the quiet room. From the crack, a bronze coffin quickly rose up. The coffin was suffused with a bronze light, and there were many talismans on it. These talismans were mysteriously circulating on the coffin. It looked unusually evil. Go and capture that demon for me. I want to kill him with my own hands." The bronze coffin shook violently, and the returning bronze light suddenly changed. Black gas filled the air and covered the entire coffin. Then, it instantly rushed into the crack below and escaped from the ground, directly passing through the earth. This mountain was filled with the power of the 5 elements. It was really strange that it could escape so easily. The crack also closed in an instant. This person was none other than the sect leader of the 5 elements sect. The cultivator that Di killed back then was his blood. At that time, when the curse mark appeared on Di, he had already noticed it. His heart was bleeding. Unfortunately, Di was in the secret realm at that time, and he couldn't enter. When the secret realm opened again, and he wanted to seek revenge again, Silver Hair and the others led a group of demons to destroy hundreds of sections. In the blink of an eye, they were in front of him. As the sect leader, he couldn't leave at all. His heart was filled with anger, but he had to stay in the sect. He didn't expect that this time, Di would come to the 5 Elements mountain range personally. On the spot, he connected with the curse mark. Through the mark, his image was captured in front of him. He saw his enemy with his own eyes. Chapter 358. The curse imprint itself had the ability to track. It would send the cursed target's figure to the owner, but this kind of mirror image across space could not be used at will. Only when the distance between them reached a certain distance and the curse imprint became extremely strong, could one see the other person's appearance through the imprint. This time, Deng Tianhua was completely driven mad. When he saw Di Shirtian's figure, he really wanted to eat his flesh, drink his blood, and swallow him into his stomach. If not for the fact that he knew that at this moment, the 5 Elements mountain range was a mix of good and bad people, and who knew how many experts had gathered, and that there were 8 great demon kings among the demon clan, he was afraid that he would have directly killed his way over. TSK. In an extremely remote and deserted mountain cave near the edge of the 5 Elements mountain range, a strange and sharp demonic sound that caused one's heart to feel a chill continuously reverberated. There seemed to be a strange restriction in front of the mountain cave that blocked the waves of demonic sound and did not allow it to spread out of the cave. Through the restriction, one could see that the cave was actually filled with endless demonic chi. The pitch-black demonic chi continued to churn and filled every inch of space. Within the demonic chi, one could vaguely see many ferocious-looking demons appearing and disappearing. From time to time, they would let out a strange demonic cry. The dense demon chi had corroded the cave walls into a black color, looking very strange and evil. Moving forward along the demon chi, in the deepest part of the cave, there was an extremely burly figure, at least 2 meters tall. The muscles all over his body bulged as if they were alive, filled with a strong sense of strength. However, half of this person's face was covered with a hideous and terrifying demonic pattern, like black earthworms, that spread directly to his neck. A strong demonic nature gathered on his body. If one took a closer look, they would discover that the place he was sitting on was not an ordinary place. It was actually the mouth of a spring. What came out of the mouth of the spring was not clear spring water, but ink-black demonic chi. After the demonic chi came out, it drilled into the man's body. The demonic chi that permeated the entire cave was gushing out from this spring. There was a dilapidated palace floating above the person's head. There were countless demonic runes flowing on the palace, and they were also absorbing the surrounding demonic chi. The speed at which the demonic chi entered the palace was faster than the speed at which the person was absorbing it. It was like a huge whale swallowing seawater, gulping down mouthfuls of demonic chi into the palace. The more it devoured, the more demonic runes appeared in the palace. The dilapidated palace seemed to be slowly recovering under the devouring of the demonic aura. Some damaged areas were slowly mending, but the speed was extremely slow. If one did not observe carefully, it would be extremely difficult to notice. Di Shirtian, I will definitely find you. Once I master my demonic arts, it will be the time of your death. The heavens are on my side. I'm afraid you would never have imagined that, after you injured me, this Devil King would find this rare 9-een Devil Cave. With the help of the endless devil energy in the Devil Cave, my devil cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. No matter what, I won't let you off for what happened back then. Kill, kill, kill. I will refine you into my devil guard. You will be under my control for life. The man who had obviously turned into a devil suddenly opened his eyes. The color of his eyes was actually blood red, and they flickered with a red light. It was extremely terrifying. He roared loudly in the cave. After roaring for a while, the man's hand formed another strange demonic seal, and the surrounding demonic chi rushed into his body. In the blink of an eye, his body was completely enveloped by the endless demonic chi, and even his figure could not be seen. Only the endless demonic chi was violently tumbling. In the cave, there were still a large number of devils flying around wantonly, making strange cries. However, this demonic chi was only limited to the cave. Outside, the vegetation was still green, and there was a shade of green. It was like an ordinary mountain forest, and it was very unique. In a cave in the valley where the group of demons gathered, Tion opened his eyes, slightly puzzled. He looked thoughtfully at the curse mark on his hand. Although he was in the midst of cultivation, with his sharp demonic consciousness, as long as anyone was near him, he would instantly sense it and wake up on the spot. This was an ability that one would have when one's cultivation reached a certain level. If there was hostility or killing intent, under the stimulation of the outside world, it was possible to launch a killing move the moment he opened his eyes. Just now, he suddenly felt as if there was a pair of eyes secretly watching him, and it immediately woke him up. However, when he glanced around, there was no second figure in the surroundings. Naturally, it was impossible that there was anyone watching him nearby. The only suspicious thing was the strange curse mark on his hand. The skull on the mark flashed with a green light, and it looked like a pair of eyes hidden in the darkness. Humph! Seal! Tion pondered for a moment, and let out a cold snort. With a thought, the third-grade black lotus in the demon mansion immediately poured out a pure royal true force. It quickly passed through the demon veins in his body, and came to his right hand. Without hesitation, it rushed towards the curse mark. The royal true force was extremely domineering, and it had a kind of aura of supremacy. When it came in front of the curse mark, it immediately turned into a ferocious beast, and opened its mouth to swallow the curse mark. After a few cycles, the power in the mark was transformed into the royal true force, and the mark pattern on the back of Yuan Xian's hand naturally disappeared. However, Tion knew that it was only the power of the curse that had been swallowed. The source of the curse had not dissipated, and it was still in his body. It would absorb the power of heaven and earth on its own, and it would reappear tomorrow. Doing this would not completely eradicate it. Humph! In the past, I might not have been able to do anything to you, but now I have obtained the inheritance of the curse mark, and this tracking curse is also a type of curse technique. When there is time, I will refine you into one of my curse marks, and become my curse technique, and use it for me. However, it seems that the person who put the curse on me already knows about me. That feeling of being watched, he was sure that he was not wrong. There was definitely someone spying on him in the dark, and it was very likely that it was the person who put the curse on him. However, he was not afraid. No longer thinking about it, he closed his eyes and wanted to continue cultivating. Bang! However, it seemed that the heavens destined him to not be able to cultivate in peace today. Just as he was about to close his eyes, suddenly, there was a slight vibration under his body without any warning. Tion's reaction was not slow. Almost in an instant, he did not even stand up, and his body directly moved a few feet forward. In midair, his body stretched out and his feet stepped on the ground. At the same time, The stone bed that he was sitting on collapsed the moment he left, turning into thousands of pieces, and with a strong force, shot out in all directions. In the midst of the exploded pieces, a shining bronze coffin emerged from the ground, and a large number of talismans were flashing rapidly on it. The coffin turned and faced Tion, and without any courtesy, it turned fiercely and domineeringly towards him. This collision was like the collision of stars. The domineering and fierce aura caused even the air to tremble violently, and the space shook violently, causing the surrounding rocks to fly wildly. However, as soon as they hit the bronze coffin, they were instantly smashed into pieces. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of him. Break! Tian's eyes flashed, and a layer of purple light circulated on the purple mark on his forehead. The majesty of the five extremes filled his entire body, and with a pat on his back, the tiger's soul flew to the top of his head. He raised both of his hands up high, and at the same time, he held the tiger soul's slender hilt. The muscles on his arms instantly bulged, and coiled up like dragons. The Emperor's true power surged into the saber one after another. A layer of golden divine light appeared on the tiger soul's saber, and the figure of a divine tiger appeared on it. The sharp saber chi danced around wantonly. Chi. The tip of the saber swallowed and spat out a saber light that was several feet long, forming a huge tiger soul. Holding the saber with both of his hands, he heavily slashed down at the bronze coffin that was charging towards him. The tiger soul's edge was unusually sharp and domineering. Wherever the saber passed, a huge saber mark was actually drawn in the air. It was so fast that it slashed onto the bronze coffin, and collided with the coffin's terrifying power without dodging at all. Rumble, rumble, rumble! Tion only felt a huge recoil coming from the tiger soul, and his body was involuntarily pushed back by this power. His feet were nailed to the ground like divine needles, and with this retreat, he left a mark that was 2 to several feet deep on the hard rock. He was forcefully pushed back more than 2 feet. However, the tiger soul's saber strike was earth-shattering. In the entire world, it was as if there was only this saber light. The saber was filled with a huge amount of true power, and in an instant, the tiger soul's mighty power was activated. It was not an exaggeration. If this saber strike was outside, it could even split a mountain in half and crack the earth. The tiger soul collided with the bronze coffin. Although the sakra was sent flying by the enormous force, the ferocious aura of the bronze coffin was also stopped on the spot. The coffin violently trembled. Although it didn't fly out, it stopped the momentum of the collision in midair. Clearly, it wasn't unaffected by the tiger soul. However, it was unknown what material the bronze coffin was made of. Under the sharp saber of the tiger soul, it actually only flashed a layer of talisman and blocked the saber light, not causing any damage to the coffin. It was extremely strange. Boom! After a slight pause, the bronze coffin shook violently. It turned around and charged towards Tion again. It was still ferocious and domineering, like Mount Tai. Humph! Heaven-binding chains! Tion's eyes focused, and his hand instantly formed a strange seal. After forming it, a huge amount of royal true power was released along with the seal. As soon as the seal was formed, the space in front of him suddenly trembled violently a few times. 3 golden chains suddenly appeared out of thin air. With a clatter, they wrapped around the bronze coffin like agile snakes. Throw a few tickets if you have one. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 359. They were extremely agile and appeared at different angles at the same time. They even appeared in front of the bronze coffin and bound the coffin in an instant. Boom! The bronze coffin itself had enough power to shatter a mountain, but now that it was bound by the 3 golden chains, It was like a raging bull suddenly had a rope tied around its head. The terrifying power instantly straightened the three chains, as if they were going to snap in an instant. However, the chains were extremely strange. The other end of the chains was directly inserted into the void, as if it was connected to the void. As the bronze coffin struggled, the void shook violently. Break! How could Tion let go of such an opportunity? The tiger's soul in his hand instantly shot out an endless amount of light. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward. With the tiger's soul in his hand, he slashed with his saber from bottom to top. He held the saber with both hands and raised the saber to his shoulders. Without any hesitation, the huge saber light slammed into the bronze coffin, causing it to shake violently. The three chains shook violently, causing the void to shake. It was as if there was a terrifying existence in the coffin that wanted to break the chains. But once Tion made the first move, he immediately didn't hold back in the slightest. Slash after slash, like moving clouds and flowing water, slashed out countless terrifying afterimages in the surroundings. Hundreds and thousands of slashes continuously landed on the bronze coffin that had appeared out of nowhere. The golden light of the blade was like a screen of blades that covered every inch of the coffin. This coffin was truly miraculous. The talisman on it would always emit a strange bronze light when the tiger's soul landed on it. Although the light on the talisman would become much dimmer each time it blocked a slash, it did not diminish in the slightest as it forcibly blocked the storm-like attacks without damaging the coffin in the slightest. Roar! The bronze coffin shook violently and suddenly emitted an intense light that had never been seen before. Waves of gray gas surged out of the coffin and wrapped around the chains, causing them to shatter on the spot. The bronze coffin that was originally lying horizontally in the air instantly fell to the ground, shattering the solid rocks on the ground. With a crack, the bronze coffin lid that was tightly shut suddenly opened to one side. The moment the coffin lid was opened, a wave of gray and pungent gas surged out crazily. The disgusting smell of rotting corpses filled the entire cave in an instant. Corpse chi! Indra cried out with a trace of surprise in his mouth, but he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of air. His whole body emitted a dense demonic aura, which repelled the corpse aura in the surroundings. When the demonic aura and the corpse aura came into contact with each other, it actually emitted a strange chi-chi sound, which was like the sound of water and fire, and there was a green smoke floating at the edge. Poochie! Before he could react, from the opened coffin, a silver-white claw that was covered in long hair and shining with a silver light and 3 feet long clawed at Tion's heart like lightning. Looking at the sharp claws that cut through the air and cut through the void like sharp blades, one could tell that this claw was as sharp as a divine weapon and terrifying. If it landed on the chest, one could believe without a doubt that it would be able to pull out a warm and bloody heart. Fast. Unbelievably fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, this silver claw had already appeared in front of Tion's heart. It would not even take a second to break open the chest and pull out the heart. However, it seemed that this possibility was infinitely delayed. With a dang, this claw did not grab the heart, but a sharp blade. The blade of the blade spurted out and burst out, bursting into the claw. There was a sound of metal colliding with each other. The 5 sharp claws and the blade burst into fierce sparks. Sparks were created. Purring! Tion took this opportunity to raise his right foot and step on the tall body in front of him. The tyrannical true power contained in his foot suddenly exploded, and the opponent's clothes instantly turned into fine powder. Strands of long silver hair were blasted and fell down. But its body gave off a hard feeling as if he was stepping on a big iron mountain. It was as if it was not a body of flesh and blood, but a bronze man made of fine iron. It was like an Iron Man. It was truly invulnerable. Zombie, what a powerful zombie. A silver body, could it be a silver-armored zombie? Tion's mind quickly flashed with a thought. Borrowing the power of that kick, The corner of his eyes had already taken in the appearance of the figure in front of him. It was a zombie with long hair, a silver-white body, and a dense corpse aura emitting from its body. The zombie's eyes revealed a bloodthirsty red light. Its entire body was invulnerable, impervious to fire and water, and its movements were as fast as lightning. It did not have the so-called clumsiness of zombies. His heart secretly trembled. The aura emitted from this zombie was extremely valiant. He could feel that this body contained an extremely terrifying power. When the tiger's soul slashed on its hand, only a small crack appeared, and it healed in the blink of an eye. The zombie's undying body was extremely terrifying. Sure Tion, you're really in a good mood. Where did you find this little zombie from, to touch you to practice your blade? At this moment, the silver-armored zombie in front of Sure Tion quickly pounced on him. 2 strands of silver-white corpse aura spurted out from its nose. It congealed and did not disperse, like a long snake rolling towards him. The sharp claws in its hands danced quickly, and the sharp nails drew out countless sharp afterimages. The sharp sound of the claws piercing through the air was still intensely ringing in his ears. Sure Tian's expression turned serious. Just as he was about to cross swords with the zombie again, a seductive laughter suddenly sounded from outside the cave. As soon as the laughter fell, a plain white figure had already appeared in the cave. Without waiting for Sure Tian to make his move, a rainbow-colored ribbon broke through the air and rolled towards the silver-armored zombie. This roll appeared to be very casual, but it easily wrapped up the silver-armored corpse, which had extraordinary strength, copper tendons, and iron bones, and wrapped it up like a rice dumpling. The other end of the ribbon was impressively held in by Hu's hand. With a shake of her wrist, the ribbon transmitted a force, and the wrapped zombie was smashed against the stone wall of the cave. With a loud bang, the zombie actually smashed a big hole in the hard mountain rock. The ribbon shook again, and once again wrapped around the zombie, and continued to smash it in all directions. For a moment, the rumbling sounds were unceasing. In the blink of an eye, the perfectly good cave was smashed into thousands of holes. Roar! Being smashed here and there like this, the zombie was about to get angry. The eyes of the wrapped zombie emitted a strange red light, and with a roar it shook the cave unceasingly. Its originally extremely tall and sturdy body violently swelled, and in an instant, it became 1 size bigger. Extremely dense corpse aura was spat out from its body. 10 sharp nails scratched on the ribbon, and with a swish, the ribbon was torn apart from the middle. The zombie was released from the ribbon's binding. As soon as it came out, it seemed to have sensed that Bai Hu was not to be trifled with. It actually dashed into the bronze coffin like lightning, and with a bang, the lid of the coffin was closed again, not leaving the slightest gap. The coffin trembled and drilled into the ground. As soon as it touched the ground, it was immediately like a sponge touching water, and easily drilled into the soil. From the looks of it, it actually wanted to escape. Humph, want to leave? It's not that easy. With a flash of light in Sure Tian's hand, a snow-white 9-string zither appeared in his hand. This 9-string zither had 9 strings. Among them, 8 were sparkling and translucent like beautiful jade, but the remaining 1 was entirely earthy yellow, and on the string condensed an inconceivably large amount of earth origin. Sure Tian did not even look at it. He reached out and placed his hand on the earthy yellow string, and with a fierce pull, he released it. Hum! A wave of earthy yellow sound waves swept towards the bronze coffin like a tide. One could see with the naked eye that wherever the earthy yellow sound waves passed, the ground below also trembled like waves. In the blink of an eye, the ground became incomparably hard like diamond. Even if one were to cut the ground with a knife, it would be difficult to leave a mark on the ground. He actually turned earth into steel with a single hand. It just so happened to target some of the 5 elements escape technique. The bronze coffin was obviously traveling through the earth. This time, as soon as it entered the earth, it was trapped inside. In addition, the force that erupted from the violent tremors of the ground was all applied to the bronze coffin. At this moment, the coffin suffered countless fierce bombardments. Rumble! It was unknown what kind of treasure the bronze coffin was. At this juncture, the countless talismans on it burst out with unprecedented light. A powerful force appeared on the coffin, breaking free from the shackles, breaking through the shackles, and escaping into the distance. However, the moment it escaped, the light on the bronze coffin became extremely dim. There was no trace of luster, and the talismans became incomparably illusory, as if they could disappear at any time. It quickly traveled through the earth and escaped into the distance. "Hey, when did your zither become so powerful?" Baihu looked at the seven sins demonic zither in D. Shirtian's hand in surprise and said with slight surprise, "The sound waves just now had the power of the five elements earth. Where the sound waves reached, even the earth could be controlled. Even if it is a natal demon artifact, it is only at the level of a magic treasure. How can it be so powerful?" Her eyes looked around and finally landed on the bead on the zither. When she saw the origin of earth flowing on the bead, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She raised her head and looked deeply at D. Shirtian. She seemed to be deep in thought, but did not continue to say anything. What was the matter with that zombie just now? Why did it suddenly come to your cave abode? Could it be that those immortal cultivators did something again? Baihu changed the topic and asked about what happened just now. "Someone is looking for me for revenge." D. Shirtian looked indifferent. He put away the seven sins and put the tiger soul back into the scabbard. He did not think that the zombie would attack him rashly. Moreover, he felt like he was being watched before. The only possibility was that the person who cursed him sent it to seek revenge. If you have the ability, please help me subscribe. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 360. Haha. It seems that you really have a lot of enemies, and they are everywhere. In the Southern Barbarian, there was the Thousand Beasts sect, and here there are zombies automatically coming to your door. You really don't lack enemies wherever you go. However, the bronze coffin just now was very extraordinary. I don't know who made it, but it even broke free from your method of transforming earth into steel. The white fox retrieved the ribbon and wrapped it around her arm again. The section that had been torn apart by the silver-armored corpse had been restored to its original state at some point in time. It was miraculous, as if it had never been torn apart. By the way, if it is not necessary in the future, it is best not to show your seven sins demon zither in front of others so easily. If someone takes a fancy to it, be careful not to cause unnecessary trouble. Baihu suddenly added another sentence, rolled her eyes at him, and said, "I really don't know where you get your luck from. Treasures of heaven and earth that others may not be able to find after thousands of years, but you easily get them one by one. If it were not for you, but someone else, even I would have snatched them." There was a kind of coquettish and indignant tone in her words, as if she was annoyed that she did not have that kind of luck. The heavenly treasure box that she brought out from that dangerous place with great difficulty turned out to be some puzzles that she did not like the most. When she looked at it, she saw stars and felt dizzy. She could not find the slightest pattern at all. She had benefited D. Shirtian. Now, on a life demon artifact, there was a rare treasure that could not be found in 10,000 years. She had extraordinary eyesight. Although it was only a glance, she could see that it was extraordinary from the method of transforming earth into steel. She also felt the extremely rich origin of earth in it. It was obviously not an ordinary item, and it was in the shape of a bead. The first thing that was similar to it was the spiritual item of heaven and earth, the earth spirit bead of the 9 spirit beads. This spirit bead was a treasure that was desired but could not be found anywhere. Obtaining one would have the opportunity to transform one's body into the legendary born Taoism aptitude. If it was known, it would immediately cause endless trouble. Who knew how many jealous people would rush to snatch it? Without absolute strength, such a treasure should not be revealed easily. Yes. Di Shirtian nodded slightly. Looking at the large crack on the ground, he said thoughtfully, "Zombies are indeed extremely evil. Their entire bodies are made of copper and iron, invulnerable to swords and spears, and impervious to fire and water. Moreover, they are born with divine strength and extraordinary strength. The corpse poison on their bodies is rather overbearing and vicious. Just the silver-armored corpse alone is strong enough to fight against my tiger soul head-on. I wonder how strong the gold-armored corpse on the floor above will be." In the past few days, he had encountered zombies twice in a row. The first time was on the way to the Five Elements mountain range, and the second time was here. He could not be wrong about the same corpse aura, especially the one who was wandering around with the black coffin on his back. He could clearly feel that he was definitely stronger than the silver-armored corpse. Zombies wander about the 3 realms and the 6 Dao. They are both dead and alive. They are unfathomable existences in the world. It is said that the ancestor of the zombies, Jiang Chun, was no weaker than the strongest cultivators in the world. In fact, he was even stronger. Zombies are neither dead nor alive. In fact, it's even stronger than our demon clan's demon body. A cool breeze blew through the cave. The Rock Demon King had a faint smile on his face. He held a feather fan in his hand and gently waved it. His clothes fluttered as he walked in. Behind him, the other demon kings also walked in. Smelling the faint corpse aura in the air, he said with a faint smile, "The cultivation world is still the same. I don't dare to say that they ambushed others, but it seems that they went for wool and came back to bite them. Brother D, with your current cultivation, you are already at the peak of the first transformation. It seems that it won't be long before you can step into the second transformation. Unfortunately, the battle is imminent. I'm afraid there won't be enough time for you to break through. Otherwise, if you can reach the second transformation, you will have the power to protect yourself on the first floor of the Tong Tian Tower." Silverhair also stepped forward with a faint smile. His eyes were full of vicissitudes as he glanced at Di Shirtian. The surprise and heartfelt congratulations in his words were not fake at all. After cultivating the Book of Shocking Huangji, Di Shirtian's cultivation realm would be shrouded in a layer of fog unless he fought with others personally. No matter how powerful one was, it would be difficult to see through his realm unless one's cultivation was much higher than his. Otherwise, one could only guess from the aura he emitted. By who could see through his realm because she lured him to make a move in the illusion. At this moment, Silverhair and the others could see through his aura when he fought with the bronze coffin just now. Silverhair couldn't help but be amazed. Di Shirtian's cultivation speed was really too unexpected. Although he knew that he had a breakthrough in the secret realm, he didn't expect that in such a short time, not only did he break through to the first transformation, but he also reached the peak of the first transformation. He could enter the second transformation at any time. With this speed, he had such an incredible breakthrough in just a few years. In the Yao clan, he was definitely the only one. He didn't know that Di Shirtian had obtained a heaven-defying treasure like the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. It could reverse time. A few decades inside was only a few years outside. He didn't know this. Even with his calm mind, he was shocked on the spot. "Everyone, there is still half a month before the competition. I want to go into seclusion for a while. I will come out before the competition begins." Di Shirtian took a deep breath. His expression was calm. He nodded to the Rock Demon King and the others and suddenly said something that surprised them. "You want to go into seclusion at this time?" The White Fox was slightly annoyed as she said, "Shirtian, what are you trying to do now? It's not even a month until the competition, and you're suddenly going into seclusion. Don't tell me you're thinking of breaking through to the second transformation of Yaodan in such a short period of time. Eighth sister, since Brother D wants to go into seclusion, there must be a reason. The Rock Demon King extended his feather fan and gently stopped by Hu. He said with a smile, Brother D, you can go into seclusion here. I don't think those cultivators will dare to come. Later, I will set up restrictions around the area. If no one comes, then it's fine. If anyone dares to sneak attack, then they can't leave. However, most of the young experts of my Yao clan will come this time. If you have time, you should interact with each other. Get familiar with each other. When we enter the Skysplit Tower, we can take care of each other. And many thanks, Demon King. Di Shirtian nodded but was stopped by the Rock Demon King with a smile. Haha, if you think highly of me, then call me Big Brother Shui. I had a name in my early years, Shuiwei. The Rock Demon King's words were slightly intimate. Okay, then I'll call you Big Brother Shui in the future. Di Shirtian naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity to get closer to each other. He nodded and agreed. Seeing that there was nothing to do, and hearing Di Shirtian mention that he was going to cultivate in seclusion, the other demon kings also wanted to get close to him, but they all knew that now was not the time, so they all left with a smile. Bai Hu rolled her eyes at him flirtatiously and also walked out. For a time, he was the only one left standing in the cave residence. Looking at the cave residence, because of the previous battle, it was extremely messy. There were broken stones everywhere and even a huge crack in the ground. This was very troublesome for ordinary people, but Di Shirtian just waved his hand casually and pushed all the surrounding stones into the crack. He smoothed the crack and set up restrictions around it. The 7 Sins demonic zither flew out of the Yao residence and placed on the stone bed. The strings of the zither vibrated slightly, and a strong suction force was immediately emitted. All around, strands of darkness gathered toward the 7 Sins demonic zither as if they had spirituality. In the blink of an eye, the entire cave residence was filled with the rich power of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, occupying every inch of space. It could be expected that as long as one entered here and touched them, something bad would definitely happen. Just this dense power of desire alone was enough to surpass countless restrictions. Then he took out the exquisite creation pagoda and shrunk it to the size of a speck of dust. With a flash, he entered the pagoda. He did not stop at the first level, but directly went to the second level. With a 50-fold reversal time, half a month was enough for him to stay in the pagoda for 2 years. In these 2 years, if he used it to break through the realm, it might be very difficult. He didn't want to break through at this time. What he wanted to do was to condense the curse imprint on his hand into his own curse imprint. Remove this curse. The root of the curse technique is the curse imprint. The condensation of the curse imprint is to use one's own curse power to condense one's thoughts, to wander to the boundless realm of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, to use the endless desires of all living beings as thoughts and obsessions as sustenance to condense an indestructible obsessions that can be used by oneself. Turning this indestructible obsessions into a curse imprint, to display a mighty power that can shock heaven and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. Di Shirtian sat cross-legged on the grass. Some of the root of the curse technique that he had comprehended from the 10 curse imprints in the past appeared in his mind. What was the most terrifying thing in the world? Obsessions. Obsessions came from desire, a desire that could never be satisfied in one's heart. In the power of desire, there were endless desires and obsessions. These obsessions were formed from the desires of countless living beings. No matter how powerful an expert was, it was impossible to make them disappear. Similar obsessions gathered in the void. For example, the obsessions of lust. When countless obsessions related to lust gathered together, it would give birth to an indestructible obsessions related to lust. This obsessions was a combination of lust, desire, and lust, and would almost never be extinguished. In this indestructible obsessions there were countless desires related to lust. If there was a curse technique master who wandered to this indestructible obsessions and didn't lose himself in this obsessions, he could obtain a wisp of obsessions related to lust and bring it back to his body. Then, this wisp of indestructible obsessions would be condensed into a curse imprint, and he would obtain a curse technique. It was quite dangerous for a curse technique master to practice curse techniques, especially when looking for a suitable obsessions. It was necessary to understand the most fundamental technique of the curse technique master, the divine sense separation technique. It could separate the divine sense from the main body and use a wisp of the divine sense to wander to the void of desire. If the divine sense was eroded by the obsessions, it could be given up in an instant. If the main body was damaged, it could be recovered in the end. It would not be completely lost and beyond redemption. Chapter 361. It was impossible for a cursemancer to absorb the power of desire directly like Tion. They had to be careful even when they touched it. Once there was an accident, they would be doomed eternally. Therefore, the divine thought separation technique was the most fundamental technique for a cursemancer. Those who had not achieved the initial success in this technique would not be allowed to wander into the void of desire. When the divine thought separation technique reached the initial success, one would be able to divide one's own divine thoughts into several parts and use the separated divine thoughts to replace the danger of one's own body. This technique was very magical and would not be taught to anyone who was not a direct disciple. It was impossible for anyone who was not a cursemancer to know about it. However, this magical technique had been passed down since ancient times. Therefore, when a cursemancer practiced, every step forward was accompanied by endless danger. One careless step could lead to eternal damnation in the blink of an eye. Today, I'll deal with you once and for all. I'll get rid of this parasite. Tion thought to himself. A touch of determination flashed across his eyebrows. He had not completely erased the curse mark before. Firstly, it was a matter of time. Secondly, it did not bring any great loss to him. However, the appearance of the bronze coffin made him feel like he had to completely eliminate this threat. In order to avoid those kinds of sneak attacks appearing one after another, he also didn't want his every move to be under the surveillance of others. The instant the bronze coffin left, such a thought appeared in his mind. Since he had already made up his mind, he didn't want to have the slightest hesitation. He immediately decided to go into seclusion. In the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, he had plenty of time to search for the curse mark. Tsk, Tion, no wonder you have today's achievements. Once you make a decision, you do it without hesitation. This kind of decisive action is the easiest way to become an ambitious and ruthless person. You are decisive and meticulous. You have the potential to become an expert. However, if I am not wrong, the curse on you should be the most commonly used curse among cursemancers. Soul Eater. Ming's voice suddenly appeared in Tion's mind. He was about to use his divine thoughts to search for the curse mark when Tion was about to stop. Soul Eater? Sakra's thoughts turned and he said, "This curse didn't display any powerful means on my body. At best, it's only a kind of curse technique used to track and search, to lock onto the location. How could it have such a strange name? Could it be that the curse is incomplete?" I have to say that your brain is very flexible. You actually thought of this in a flash. Ming let out a strange cry and said, "All those years ago, this soul devour technique was a technique that every single cursemancer was capable of. When it was executed, it didn't just possess the ability to track, search, lock onto one's location, and so on and so forth. The most domineering aspect of this technique was that so long as its owner utilized it, it would be like a myriad of ants gnawing away at one's soul. It wouldn't take one's life for a short period of time, but it would cause extreme pain. The pain of having a myriad of ants gnawing away at one's soul caused countless people to take their own lives before anyone else could do anything. But from the looks of it, the one who used the curse wasn't a real cursemancer at all. The ability to track and search was already the limit. Otherwise, even if you could absorb the power of desire, you would still be in trouble. Ming's description made one's heart turn cold, but one had to admit that this technique was definitely a very good technique if it was used well. Since it has such power, then all the more reason for me to control it. Sakra smiled indifferently, and the divine light in his eyes became even more resolute. He closed his eyes, and his hands formed a strange hand seal. The shape of the hand seal was like a lotus, and the moment it was formed, the power of desire in the surroundings gathered towards the position of the hand seal, and in an instant, his divine sense quickly entered his body, turning into thousands of strands, and quickly searched every inch of his flesh and blood. He wanted to find the source of the curse mark and absorb it for his own use. Bang! In the quiet room on the Five Elements peak, Deng Tianhua slammed his palm heavily on the ground. The power from his palm blasted a huge deep pit in the ground. In front of him, the bronze coffin that attacked Di Shirtian was floating. The countless talismans on the bronze coffin that were glowing with divine light had dimmed and become extremely illusory, as if they could be destroyed at any time. It seemed very weak. How could this be? Could it be that the demon has the same cultivation as the 8 great demon kings? Impossible. How could he resist the silver-armored corpse that I raised with this bronze coffin that is the best at raising corpses from the ruins? He even damaged the bronze coffin to such an extent that even the talismans are about to collapse. What kind of strength does that demon have? Deng Tianhua screamed hysterically in this empty quiet room with a ferocious face. With a trace of madness in his eyes, he stared at the bronze coffin. After a long time he sneered, "Good, good, good! Don't be so smug. That freak most likely came here for the immortal demon duel. Since he couldn't even kill you with a sneak attack, then I'll show you what's good for you in Skysplit Pagoda. I'll make sure you don't have a good death." That voice came out from the gaps between his teeth. It could be seen how deep the hatred in his heart was. At this moment, in the guest room of the Five Elements sect that was used to entertain other sects, there was a middle-aged man wearing a blood-red robe. Blood clouds surged around his body as he spat out a ray of blood-red light. In front of him, a blood-red banner floated. A large amount of blood-red aura continuously surged into the banner. As the banner fluttered, it stirred up the air and let out a strange whistle. Suddenly, the blood-red cloud on the banner surged and a blood-red figure appeared. This blood-red figure's appearance was very similar to the middle-aged man in front of him, as if they were made from the same mold. However, one was young, while the other was old and dignified. "Father, father, you must save me. I don't want to stay in this damned blood cloud banner for the rest of my life." The blood-red figure appeared and looked at the blood-red robed man in front of him. He opened his mouth and loudly cried out. His voice was filled with tears of blood, making people who heard it feel sorrowful. "My son, don't worry. Father will definitely let you be reborn again. All these years, I have been preparing a perfect body for you. Even if I have to pay a great price, I will let you obtain a blood god's body that is most suitable for cultivating my sect's great technique. Now, all that is missing is all kinds of powerful blood to condense the blood god's body. You will definitely be able to find it in Tong Tian Tower. It won't be long before you can be resurrected again and obtain a new life. Moreover, once you are reborn, you will have the powerful cultivation of a nascent soul." The blood-red robed man looked at the blood-red figure with a deep affection in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to give all of his precious things to the other party. "Father, revenge. You must avenge your son's death. Di Shirtian, I want to eat your flesh and drink your blood." The blood-red figure's face was malevolent as he let out a series of hysterical roars. That roar was filled with dense hatred that couldn't be dispersed. "Ini, don't worry. Father has already investigated Di Shirtion. Although your senior brother Di Shirtion entered the Devil Path in the Zither Music Valley and is still missing, he has exposed his identity. He is a demon clan. Moreover, he is a demon king who has condensed his Niden. If nothing unexpected happens, Father will be able to find traces of him this time. When the time comes, I will personally capture him for you so that you can avenge your own blood feud. I will make you a blood sacrifice for your rebirth." The blood-red robed man's eyes flashed with a thick evil aura, carrying with it a fierce light. He fully displayed the power of a ferocious demon. "Father, you must not be careless. That Di Shirtion is extremely strange. When I first saw him, he directly emerged from the ground. His body was filled with a strange sadness. Even I fell into his trap and died. If it wasn't for Father's life-saving treasure, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see you again today. So Father, you must be very careful." Shwe Ini had deep feelings for his father after all and hurriedly reminded him. He was afraid that his father would be at a disadvantage. Gradually, Di Shirtion's enemies came one by one to the 5 Elements mountain range. It was unknown whether it was a blessing or a curse. I finally found you. You actually merged into your blood. If I hadn't released all of my divine sense to seal every inch of your flesh and blood, I'm afraid it would be difficult to find you. However, since I have found you, don't even think about escaping. Emperor True Force, born of desire, devouring brand. In the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, Di Shirtion used his divine sense to search every inch of flesh and blood. Every place he searched was covered with an invisible restriction, weaving an incomparably huge net, immediately sealing and wrapping all of his flesh and blood. He didn't let go of any inch of flesh and blood, thoroughly sweeping through in the form of a filter. Step by step, he was searching in the most cautious way. Finally, when he searched the heart meridian, he found a trace of seedling in the blood. Immediately, countless divine sense quickly gathered and trapped the cursed brand, sealing it at the heart meridian. The brand showed signs. Di Shirtion looked carefully and found that the brand in front of him was also a brand like a curse. However, compared to the 10 curse seals he had absorbed before, this brand was not only simple but also extremely illusory, as if it was not complete and some part was missing. It was constantly changing its shape, very strange. It looked as if it would break at any time, but tenaciously existed. Even if it was trapped, it still wanted to escape. So the brand is not complete and is missing a part. No wonder it only has such a little power. Watch me devour you. Di Shirtion's mind moved, and the Emperor True Force immediately turned into a fierce tiger, pouncing and swallowing the brand on the spot. He turned and quickly returned to the demon mansion. The Emperor True Force itself contained the power of desire. In its essence, it had the characteristics of desire. Compared to the power of desire, it was even more mysterious and beyond. Once the brand was wrapped up, it was as if it had seen a king. It did not dare to resist at all, obediently not daring to move, and was directly brought into the demon mansion. Arriving in the air, above the 3rd-grade Black Lotus, the 10 mysterious curse seals on the Black Lotus seemed to have sensed something and flew into the air one after another. Sigh, today I suddenly have to face a choice that affects my life. My heart is full of confusion and uneasiness. This kind of feeling I have never felt before. So annoying, so distressing. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.